Mike Jake, checking it, Mike, checking it, Mike. Hello, I'm Dylan.
Hey, good afternoon.
How are you?
I'm doing all right. Got a little bit of a late start to the day, but I went to sleep late last night, so but yeah, I'm getting there, getting a little bit of caffeine going. So, how about yourself?
I am hanging in there. Seem to be having some trouble trying to get the YouTube part to come up working, but well, it's all fun and games.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. I saw you put that up yesterday. That's a great idea. Like I was saying, there's been some guys for quite a while. Even myself, I was on the fence for a while about starting an X account. So hopefully people will see and maybe come on over. But yeah, that turned out great.
Well, let's see if I can get it 2 days in a row.
Yeah, I wouldn't know the first thing about getting that going. What do you use to restream it to YouTube?
I used to use StreamYard, which is pretty much everybody uses.
No, okay, I got you. You need an account for that, right? Don't you have to you got to pay for that, or there's a basic one that you can download?
Oh yeah, I think you use the free version. You can do like an hour or something like that. I of course don't have the free version.
I considered it just because there's so many people that use it, but Biospirit of the West was telling me also about Telegram, and I didn't realize how useful that was as well. But yeah, I gotta get caught up on all this stuff.
Yeah, it looks like I'm not going to get it today. That's all right.
And nothing's perfect.
Yeah, I think I know why. Yesterday I wasn't the host. I think that's why it won't let me go from two devices today. All right. Well, let's we get you set up as co-host and we'll get rolling.
Sounds good.
All right, well, I should get everything up there into the Jumbotron as it loads and appears everything that's there that should be there. Good afternoon, Biosphere. How are you doing, brother?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much. Hope everyone else is doing well too.
I'm certainly hanging in there. Good afternoon, Janice, and our friend Jerome. Good to see both of you. Welcome to the Saturday edition of the Shade Tree White Wellbeing NWG Space. We hold the space every day at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on X. We are a no white guilt community that meets to practice the concepts and lexicon developed by Jason Kuna, Mr. No White Guilt himself. You can find him here on X as at No White Guilt NWG, on YouTube and elsewhere as simply No White Guilt, and on the web at nowhiteguilt.org. We discuss a wide variety of topics of interest to white people and look for ways to apply solutions. I'm the Tree Godfather, your host, and my co-host today so far is Mr. Eidolon. We run pretty casually here, but I do ask that you raise your hand if you'd like to jump in. Otherwise, I just call on speakers in turn for their thoughts. Please don't speak over others, but if you'd like to hop into the conversation, just request a mic and we'll get you set up. We only ask that you comport yourself as much as possible to the Go Free lexicon and act like a proper lady or gentleman of the West, as applicable. Let's go. Usually, as is tradition, we start with a Westman of the day. And today, I chose a gentleman by the name of Percy Spencer. And I know you've never heard of him, but you all are familiar with his work. Percy LeBaron Spencer was an American physicist, electrical engineer, and inventor of the microwave oven. He was born in July of 1894 and lived until September of 1970. As a boy, he was twice orphaned and began work at a young age, never finishing grammar school. During the night shift, he taught himself topics such as calculus, trigonometry, physics, and chemistry, establishing a lifelong habit of self-education, or solving my own situation, as he called it. He eventually led the power tube division of Raytheon during World War II that expanded massively and continued at the company as an executive and senior member of the board. Very much a self-made man. Even among physicists and top researchers, he was infamous for his insatiable knowledge absorption. As I said, he was born in 1894 in Howland, Maine. An orphaned at a young age, his father died when he was only 18 months old. His mother was unable to care for him, so he lived with his aunt and uncle. When he was 7 years old, his uncle died. He left grammar school to earn money to support himself and his aunt. From the ages of 12 to 16, he worked from sunrise to sunset at a spool mill before achieving a job installing electricity at a local paper mill, despite having never received any formal training in electrical engineering or even finishing grammar school. Prior to his hiring, Spencer had heard the paper mill would soon install electricity and quickly learned about as much as possible he could about electricity. At that time, in 1910, it was little known in his home rural region. In fact, very little of the U.S. at the time would have been had electricity either. At the age of 18, he joined the U.S. Navy to gain experience in wireless communications, a subject he had been interested in since reading of the wireless operators aboard the Titanic. In the Navy, he made himself an expert on radio technology. To quote him, I just got hold of a lot of textbooks and taught myself while I was standing watch at night. He also subsequently taught himself trigonometry, calculus, chemistry, physics, and metallurgy. God bless him. By 1939, he was one of the world's leading experts in radar tube design, which is where this is going to sound familiar. The first microwave was called a radar range, right? He was appointed chief of the power tube division at Raytheon, which was a U.S. defense, the DoD contractor, and his division grew from 15 to more than 1,000 staff. He developed a more efficient way to manufacture magnetrons, which is the active element in a microwave that actually heats the food by vibrating the water molecules at a specific frequency. And that's kind of where it all comes down to it. So Raytheon eventually filed a U.S. patent in 1845 for the microwave cooking oven. But it wasn't in 1947, the first commercially produced microwave oven was about 6 feet tall, weighed 750 pounds, and cost the equivalent of about 70 grand in today's money. And now you can buy one for practically nothing. The first countertop model, which would have gone for about $5,000 in today's money, called the Radar Range, was made available in 1967, produced by Amana. And of course, it goes on to a little bit more about his life and his career. But quite a fascinating and intelligent, obviously an extremely ridiculously intelligent fellow, to be all self-taught with things that I'm an engineer and I don't even grasp. So I must say I was quite impressed. And I kind of got the idea for this. I think it's Hans, or is it Blue Flame? Once in a while you hear a beep in the background as he's microwaving his coffee. And it just struck me funny this morning. And as I was listening to my wife microwaving something or other, and I looked into it, and sure enough, I found this gentleman's Mr. Percy Spencer. So I thought that was a good guy to have a Westman of the day, about as brilliant as it can possibly get. Mr. Eindelen, my friend, come on in.
Man, I was wondering what that beep was. I didn't want to say anything to the Blue Flame, but I would catch that beep every once in a while. I'm like, what is he using a timer for every we finally cracked the code, guys. We got him. But I mean, with with this man right here, it's always impressive to me how self-taught people were back then, even up to my dad's generation. I had said something before about wishing that I had learned more from my dad, but to be honest, they didn't really have many people teaching them either. They either had to learn or basically fail, and that's even more so true for somebody that started off as an orphan. It's very impressive. You got to really have a inner drive to achieve things like that. So that's one of the most impressive things to me. Of course, I'm very familiar with the microwave, but uh, I mean, imagine you said it started off as something that was like 700 pounds, and I'm sure at that time they had no idea what they had and how easy it was going to make certain aspects of life from there. But yeah, very impressive.
For me, an extremely relatable life story, to be honest. Um, I remember, I think I was 5 or 6 years old. I was very young. And one of my classmates in, I think, first grade, maybe second, I think first grade, his father took care of a hydroelectric plant. And I was over at my friend's house, and he had to go check in the plant. And so we took me along with him. And that was my first experience with any kind of electrical engineering and uh, really big equipment of all outside of, you know, being on the farm. And I still remember to this day the name on the first generator you saw as you walked in. Uh, you went past the dam building and then went into the generator house. And the first generator, somebody had written in marker the big green mean machine. I remember that like yesterday. It was all painted that industrial green, and uh, I don't remember how many kilowatts it was. It wasn't a whole lot. It's not like the Hoover Dam kind of place, but very fascinated the living hell out of me. Yeah, so from a young age, it's after I saw that, I was kind of the same way. I would read books on electricity and engineering and anything pretty much mechanically related. Just turned the living hell out of me. So that's kind of how I got into all this mess. Mr. Biospirit of the West, good afternoon, my brother. Coming in.
Yeah, I remember my first microwave that I bought. I had listened to all of the Amana radar range commercials for so many years. So this was back in the 80s. And I had my first house, and I was determined I was going to have a microwave oven. Nobody in my family had ever had a microwave oven before. And the one that I got was as big as a conventional oven, and I think it cost $1,000 or something. It was just a ridiculous machine, and I had it for a long, long time. Um, but it was a big old clunker, and probably you know used so much electricity that it wasn't worth having. But anyway, that was my recollection of my first one way back when. And kind of cool. This guy's from Maine. Tree Godfather. You're from Maine. My family's from Maine. He's from Maine. So all these Maine people. And anyway, I think this was a great selection. Everybody uses a microwave these days, with very few exceptions. I remember my sister-in-law got it in her head from I don't know where that um, because breast cancer was so widespread in the area that they lived in Marin County in California. She and a whole bunch of other women had decided that it was the microwave ovens that were causing the breast cancer. So she took her microwave oven out into the backyard and took a sledgehammer to it and threw it in the garbage. So she's the only person that I know who deliberately does not use a microwave oven. But other than that, I think it's pretty ubiquitous these days.
You have no idea how relatable that story is, actually. So for many, many years, my parents did not want a microwave mostly because of my dad. My dad was an old farmer guy, you know, and to him, a microwave, when you understand there's different kinds of radiation, right? But you couldn't explain to him that the radiation inside a microwave is not like the same radiation is used in a nuclear bomb. So he absolutely refused for the longest time to have one in the house. I think it was maybe the early '90s when my parents finally relented, and they're like, yeah, as they got old, they're just like, and didn't feel like cooking it. My mother finally got a microwave, or my dad finally allowed my mother to get a microwave. It was hand me down from somebody else that had bought a new one. And I remember the first time my mother cooked with it, she had bought these pepper steaks in a package at the market, and she put them in. You put them in a regular oven, like 35, 40 minutes. Yeah, and that's how long she put them in the microwave. Uh, they did. They ordered takeout that night because these things went in. Pepper steaks, what, 6 inches long, maybe 4 or 5 inches wide. Those things came out the size of like a $half. It was basically rock hard little burnt pucks. And I remember that like it's yesterday because I was actually there when they were taking them out. And I was like, this goddamn thing don't work. Look what it did. And I'm like, well, how long did you put it in for? It's the same damn time I used any other time. I'm like, no, mom, no, no, no. Let's have a chat. Miss Julia, good to see you. You should have a microphone. Come on in.
Good evening, everyone. I'm eating some delicious food.
Was it microwaved?
I do not believe so. It's from a very nice German restaurant, and it's local lamb. Uh, it's a oh god, what is it, the English term? A lamb shank. So I do not believe at this price that it was microwaved. I certainly hope not.
We're just reminiscing about our first experiences with the microwave, an invention by Mr. Percy Spencer. He's our Westman of the day. Very, very brilliant gentleman, totally self-taught, which kind of doesn't say much for college now, does it? Because, of course, it really just takes the right guy, doesn't it? Mr. Eindel.
Well, I don't very much remember my first experience with the microwave, but I do remember my first experience with the air fryer. So and that was life changing for me. But one thing with these Westmen that I try to see, and they all kind of have this thing in common that uh, I try to see what like makes them different from people today. And as he was self taught and really learned everything on his own, it's really like they didn't have a fear of failure where nowadays it just seems like we're afraid to go out and try something new that we might fail at because like I said, people are they're so afraid of failing that it really holds us back so much that if we could get back to that more, I guess you could say, like adventuristic type of mentality where we just know that if we try something and we don't succeed, it's not necessarily the end of the world, but you could end up. I mean, who knows what you could accomplish, what you could achieve? Like some of these, I'm not saying I'm gonna ever achieve anything like this man here, but I mean, it's really it's inspiring to me on a different level.
While I got it in mind, Mr. Biospirit, do you mind if I set you up as a co-host?
I guess so. Yeah, sure.
Okay, it's just good to have a couple. Yeah, Eindlin, that it's a story that you don't seem to see too many times these days. The participation trophy and nobody's a loser mindset has really robbed generations of something that is equally important as success, and that is failure. Failure teaches quite a bit, doesn't it? Uh, Learning how to lose gracefully or lose without losing your shit is, is an actual life skill that unfortunately many people today don't possess anymore because they were never allowed to have any kind of failure. But failure is just as important as success. Not everybody's going to win the game. Somebody has to lose the game. You're going to lose the job. Somebody's going to get fired. Somebody else is going to get the girl. It's just that's life. So once you learn how to fail successfully, and there is such a thing, you have a lot better grasp on how to deal with the rest of life, in my opinion. Ms. Julia.
So I have no experience with microwaves. And the reason is that I hate microwaves. My mother was opposed to them. We had one, but she almost never used it. And she kept a handmade pyramid made of red tape and cardboard on top, which she believed counteracted to some extent the evil frequency of the microwave. Um, there is some research suggesting that microwave food is less nutritious. I ascribe to the belief that there is more to the world than we can see, and I just don't think we should be eating food that has been tampered with on it in a way that we don't fully understand yet. So I think the way that an animal lives affects everything about the food, including the flavor, but certainly the health. I think there's an energetic aspect to food, which is based on how it is raised or how it grows. And this is one of the reasons factory farming is so bad, and a reason that I think microwaving is bad. Now, I don't know about air frying. I have a similar problem with air frying, which is that I am a great despiser of plastic, and it is impossible to find an air fryer which is not lined with essentially Teflon or Teflon-like substances, which are highly toxic plastics. So, Eindolin, you might want to look into that a little bit because it's pretty bad, especially when heated, as toxic fumes are released in addition to the surface itself being toxic. Uh, so, I feel like some of these inventions, while certainly brilliant, the fact that they've become part of our daily life is not necessarily the best thing, and actually reflects the decay of our civilization, because it's this convenience, materialism. It's there's no deeper thought about what could this be doing to us using this. How is it affecting my food? It's just like, oh, this makes my life easier, and so I'll do it. Um, and I just feel like we had a more holistic approach to life in the past, but maybe I'm romanticizing a little bit.
Yeah, so when you understand the way a microwave works, there's actually truth to that, Julia. So when you heat something on the stove using a flame, say well, for example, you're cooking you're cooking a steak. You're heating. First of all, you're starting at a lower temperature, and you're heating everything from the outside in. A microwave works by directing a very specific frequency at the food inside using what's called a magnetron, which is basically a radar transmitter inside the microwave. And what it does is the specific frequency that it operates on, it causes the water molecules to vibrate. And that's what heats the food. Now, the problem, of course, is food is more than just water, unless you're heating strictly water, which is frankly most of what we use our microwave for, to heat a cup of water for coffee, for instant coffee. Uh, I don't bother with a coffee pot. So that's how the microwave works. It vibrates these water molecules. Now, because it vibrates the water, it can only ever reach a temperature that water turns to steam. So when you microwave something, you're not necessarily cooking it at the same temperature that you would be on a flame, but also it affects. So there's differences in turning caramelizing sugars into sucrose. There's also an effect on the proteins, like in meats, for example, when you microwave something that's meat based. How that affects the proteins is known to be different, of course, than heating it on a flame. Like whether it's a heat source like an electric burner or a flame like a gas burner, it's a very different reaction. So you're not wrong. Go ahead, Julia.
Yeah, so I don't know if people know this, but I have degrees in organic chemistry and biology, so I am aware of this. But thank you very much for explaining it, as I'm sure many are not aware. I wanted to comment on the water. So I haven't looked into the research extensively, but there is what looks like decent research on water holding the memory of what it has experienced. Uh, this is particularly interesting when you look at growing things. For example, one of the studies had three different waters and containers of water, and one water was told, "I love you," or something like that. One water was told, "I hate you," and one water was just completely ignored. And then after doing that for a month, they put the scientists put rice in each of these containers, and they reacted completely differently. So the one in the water that had been loved um, started fermenting uh, and was still good to consume. The one that had been hated uh, grew mold and fungus and horrible things, and the ignored one just rotted. So I don't know how it would be different in a microwave exactly, but I wouldn't be surprised if there might be some negative effects. So I'm going to be a, let's say, if you can, use a kettle instead. Um, it's pretty fast, especially if you have an electric plug and kettle, and they make ones that are all stainless steel inside. Although stainless steel is not as non-toxic as people believe because of the chromium in it. So technically, if you want to be really good about what you use, you should just stick to glass, ceramic, iron, and copper.
I am a very big fan of cast iron cookware. I actually have quite an extensive collection of cast iron, and most of it my dad actually made. Miss Grace, come on in.
Hey, no, I just wanted to agree with you what you said about the trophy generation. Everyone gets a trophy. And as someone who, was a small child in the 1990s, I I was a part of that generation. And not as much because I was homeschooled, but still we did do like extracurricular activities. And I was on a dance team for many, many years. And my dance instructor did not at all believe everyone should get a trophy. She said that coming in second was the first to lose. And she made sure that all of us knew from the time we were very tiny that you are only as good as your last performance. So it doesn't matter if you won first place, junior division, the entire state 6 months ago. What did you do last week? If you didn't pull a trophy last week, then that's your last performance. And I really think it kind of sounds harsh, but it actually, I think, is really healthy because I work with other adults who are literally hanging on to some like award they won in like seventh grade. Like you'll talk to them and they'll be like, oh, yeah, I was the such and such, whatever, of, my seventh grade year. And you're like, that's really not relevant anymore, in your late 20s. But to them, it is because they were told they were special and everyone gets a trophy. So, thoroughly agree. The trophy generation is when things really started to get bad.
Yeah, and like I said, there's lessons to be learned in failure as much as there's lessons to be learned in success, in my opinion. Uh, it teaches you, first and foremost, to drive to be better, doesn't it? If you win a trophy for every effort, regardless of the quality of the effort, it kind of negates wanting to improve to be the best if you're just going to get a trophy anyway. Mr. Biospirit.
Yeah, I was just thinking about what Grace was saying, and you were saying there was a point in my life where I had a major crash and burn and um, run in with the federal government and lost my house and lost everything and had to start from scratch all over again when I was um, in my late 30s. And so um, it it does, if you have that kind of drive, if you have the type of personality that hasn't been coddled, um, and no one's going to take care of you, you have to make yourself um, do what has to be done in order to succeed. And so I came back from that um, crash in my life even better than when I was before. And when I look back on it, I think, well, would I have gotten to where I am now if that hadn't happened? And I don't think so. I don't think I would have. I wouldn't have had the motivation to do what I did. And one of the things they say is one of the best revenges is living well. And I just kept telling myself that when I was getting my life back together. So yeah, I totally agree with that.
I know.
Yeah, that's really awesome. That's inspiring too. Yeah, the idea of as they say, failing forward is a really important concept for people to learn, especially at a young age. And not only have we kind of taken away the process of giving children obstacles to overcome so that they can build confidence, that's vitally important later in life. We've also made it to where we've talked about before, like people when they fight and stuff like that. Not everybody that there's honor in just standing up and fighting uh and it's not always about winning in that aspect. I know it's a little bit different than the whole competition side of things that we were just talking about too. But there's 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 virtue and morals and just like standing up for yourself and uh and participating. I guess you would say it's not. I mean, that's the thing now is like because of the way this whole idea of just uh like I said, this is kind of back and forth, but we really kind of we've made it to the point where kids nowadays, young people, they just don't participate at all. It's the idea uh, of participating in something and just getting an award for that. It's not motivating to children, in my experience, and yeah, we really it's something that really needs to be worked on. Yeah, but yeah, it's kind of a broad topic, but that's that's just what I've kind of noticed.
Just my opinion, of course. But for me personally, as long as I've tried and attempted, competed, uh, i- if I fail, knowing I did my best, I can walk away with my head high. Okay. I don't want a participation trophy for second place. I want that drive to do better. Because for me, the reward in trying and failing is at least knowing I did my best. Mr. Biospirit of the West. And then we'll go to Janitor of White Noir.
Yeah, I was thinking of a saying that I heard recently, sometime this year, which is that the only man in your life that wants you to do better than him is your father. And if you have a trophy kind of society where everybody gets a trophy, you're setting people up to think that everyone's going to love what they do and everyone's going to be the same and everything's going to be all hunky-dory. And that just isn't the way the world works. You're always competing with everybody else. And and I just think that that saying is something that needs to be drilled into people because it really is true. There there just isn't going to be anyone that's going to be um, having your back the way that a parent is going to when you get out into the world. That's just the way the world works.
Good afternoon, ye old European. Good to see you. Jeremy is here. JD87. And my friend for White Wellbeing. Good to see all of you. Mr. Janitor of White Noir.
Okay. So I like to bring up my my arming myself during my class. Oh, can you hear me or no? Yeah, you can, right? Oh, okay. Uh my arming myself during my history class. And so it's a lot like um it's more relevant to what Julia was saying about how um you can take two approaches, really, and probably like psychologists like Blue Flame, he knows about this well, that and Jason specifically knows that when you do hate, you fear, and almost paralyzing. So that's why I don't hate anti-whiteism, because I actually want to replace it with morality, the white positive morality. But during that class, my latest time, he was, endorsing anti-white slurs, and at every time I was just meme curative in my brain, meme curativing it, right? And but then like it was near the end of class, so like an hour in, and he does it again, and then I'm like, it's like shocking to me, and it's like, why would you be shocked? He's anti-white, and he's already said this anti-white slur like multiple times throughout the class. But then, so then I it was shocking to me. So I like closed my eyes and I was like pondering, like which one do how do I? And then I was like, oh, um, so it's because I was feeling fear and I hate that he's using this. And then I was like, okay, what actually the one I want to do instead of that is this is him accepting the anti-white morality. And then I'm open my eyes and I'm like, I'm gonna win. And um that's like how like those two plants examples that Julie was bringing up, how you can actually uh you know be erased into nothing, like with your endeavor, like with my arming myself, or or with arming myself I can like replace the anti-whiteism.
Julia?
Well, I think that's a good point. We don't want to draw more attention. I mean, we want ideally, in an ideal world, anti-whiteism to be, we want to be it to be thoroughly ignored. So I get what he's getting at, and for it to naturally rot and not to fester in a way that infects society even further. So yeah, I think it's a good point, and I also, in general, just agree that it's not good to hold hate in one's heart, and it's better, and that the opposite of love is not hate; it's indifference.
So, first topic up in the Jumbotron. I assume we have no more on the microwave topic. I wanted to update everybody if you haven't seen this. This is from Hendrik Palmgren. It's just a quick screenshot. If we remember our little Scottish girl with the butcher knife and the hatchet. So apparently, the two anti-white imported seditionist scumbags that were harassing her and her young lady friends are, our fellow daughters of the West, are also being charged. I'm not sure exactly with what, but it's good to see uh, that we have spoken out because of the outrage in the white community and have achieved at least some success there. Your thoughts on that, Miss Grace?
Hello. Actually, I cannot speak right now because I'm about to go into a Zoom call here at work. But I did just write something in the response, but it was more in response to what was discussed about hate. So I'll listen to other people's intelligent responses and then maybe I'll write a response. But I'm so sorry I have to take the Zoom call.
No apologies needed. Life comes at you fast. So Grace comments, I agree that hatred of other groups is not good on basis of birth, and hate will eat you up if allowed. But I also agree with Jason that righteous anger and hatred toward those who do real evil is important. For example, we can't just be indifferent to people who abuse Charlene. I'm not sure what that means. I assume that means us, Western kind. Mr. Janitor of White Noir.
Um, thanks for the timely response, Grace. But really, it was, and this was the part that uh I had to, mature about, was that it was hate towards him for his use of it. And it's just he's just, any random anti-white using it, the anti-white slurs that I was observing that he was using. And um so because I was literally like just uh not gonna be able to do anything if I didn't have the meme curative of what I was arming myself with. And that's not hate. And um it was also relevant, I think, to to what Biosphere and maybe Eindolin were saying earlier, but I got once I started talking, I forgot what they were saying.
Mr. Eindelen.
I mean, it's a very wise approach to janitor White Noir was saying, and Grace kind of uh, in particular mentioned how Jason views it, the righteous anger instead of just blind hatred. The righteous anger is that's productive energy that we can actually use. But I definitely give janitor of White Noir credit for. It sounds like this has happened quite a few times where he's in class and really maybe not. I mean, he's recognizing the anti-whiteism in his class, but also it sounds like there's times when he's even challenged it. So I definitely give you a lot of credit for that. And even if you're not directly challenging your teacher, I know that can create kind of a stressful environment that it might not really be the best idea. But the fact that you're taking this away from the class and really kind of uh, learning from it is great, and definitely appreciate you bringing that to us. But I mean, it is this it's this righteous anger that we see that's really doing this. It's I mean, like we see with this Scottish girl, it's people coming together on this girl's behalf because they recognize the problem. It's love for this girl and associating her with our daughters, our sisters, and so on. It's love for her instead of just blind hatred for these criminals. It's a little bit of both, but I could just tell by the responses and everything, people are really they're taking this stuff to heart in a different way. And in reality, if we just went on blind hatred, uh, I mean, these rapists would have been picked apart by now, but that's not the right type. That's not the type of justice that we're looking for. As we've said so many times, we want to change the morality and to see a victory in court instead of just blood in the street. That's a huge win because that's where we really need to win this stuff. We need to win it in the eyes of the law, and it's you could see it happening in the eyes of our people. So it's really a great win.
Yeah, that social morality is the most important piece, as we're going to see when we get into the next topic. Miss Julia.
Yeah, I think Eindolin said it very well. That there's a and Grace that there's a fundamental difference between righteous anger and hatred, and I would say that it is down to whether it's out of love or hatred, essentially, right? So hatred, when I think about it, it's because my first priority is thinking negatively of whatever I hate. Whereas anger, I think of as an expression uh, that I have in response to something or someone attacking that which I love. So that's a really big difference for me. Um, not like I spend a lot of time or any thinking about things which I hate. Um, it just doesn't seem productive. um, I spend, but so I have a physical response to things that I can say I truly hate, like spiders. I really do hate spiders. But even though like I don't think about them when I see them, I'll have a physical visceral response. But I'm still not wasting my time agonizing over them. Again, we always have to be focused on our people and centering the right things.
Mr. Janitor.
Yeah, so my experience in the class was I was physically typing and writing away the hour up into the hour, and it was uh not, and I'm confronting him kind of like Eindolin said, but only because I'm like the only one engaged in the class, and it's pretty wide erased, um uh and I'm going to replace the anti-whiteism. Um, but the second I felt hate and fear, and I understand. I like the anger MC, and I like all your deductions about anger. But this is I'm not talking about anger. I'm talking about um you know how I was typing the whole class, and then I became hateful, fearful, and paralyzed all at once. And then I just like took a breath, and I was like, oh, this is an anti-white who has accepted where the morality where whites are uniquely evil. And then I was back to doing note taking and confronting him, because I'm there, like, and telling you I'm engaged. I'm typing. I'm a noticeable presence. I'm right in front of him. If I'm typing the whole class and then he just drops an anti-white slur, and then I become paralyzed and fear and hating, full hate. That's that's you know that's not the strategy.
That's anti-white disharmony. Mr. Eindolin.
Right, it is. I mean, it's a definite change in your energy at that point in time. But I guess, I mean, I almost, the way you make it sound like it, and if you're the only student that's engaged, I wonder if that's making an impression on the teacher. Hopefully so. Hopefully, even though he's got this subconscious like anti-white programming, and he has these ideas. Hopefully, it's not lost on him that, like, look, I'm teaching this stuff, and this is my only student that's really engaged in my class. That can be very I mean, as from a teacher's perspective, I would think that if you're trying to give a lesson to your students and nobody gives a shit, and they're just like the one student that actually does care, while he might be challenging my ideas a bit, maybe he can learn, even if it's on like a subconscious level. That's still in my mind, that's progress in the right direction. So no, like I said, I appreciate you letting us know about this stuff. It seems to happen quite a bit.
Mr. Biospirit of the West.
Yeah, I was wanted to go back to the Scottish girl a little bit, and it reminds me so much of what happened to Shiloh, where um, she's trying to defend herself in the best way that comes to mind, and she's photographed, she's videotaped, she's the perpetrators who are being so evil towards our people, towards our women, are then using the images, the video, the picture, the so on, to demonize our children and our women, and to try to make them feel embarrassed about defending themselves. It's very similar to what we were talking about with the term, the anti-white slur Karen, the other day when we were talking about that. How now that, like here in California, they've used what's called the Karen Act to make it illegal for women or for anyone to supposedly use racial bias in a phone call to the police, so that your victimizer then can sue you. So this is the same kind of thing where the victimizers are victimizing us doubly. They're coming at us from every different angle, and it's so satisfying to see that for a change, these two got arrested. Well, yeah, I mean, will anything actually happen to them? I'm doubtful of that, since the court system is very anti-white. But it's very bothering to me to think that anytime that any one of our people tries to defend themselves, invariably it's on. Excuse me. Invariably, it's on video. It's on some kind of tape. It's on some kind of audio. It gets spun in such a way that we are harmed, and we need to do something to put an end to that. And of course, that's ending anti-whiteism. But it's very disturbing.
I have come to call that weaponized white guilt. They know that videotaping it and painting it in the worst possible light for our people leads to that social lynching that happens because white guilt has been so weaponized. I agree. I don't think a whole lot's going to happen. You know, if they get so much as a slap on the wrist, I would be amazed, because we've seen so many similar cases with far, far worse charges get absolutely nothing anyway. So I wouldn't expect much. But the fact that they were charged at all perhaps is a little encouraging, that there's at least some change afoot. I think in a day that we live in, where everybody's got a camcorder in their pocket, it's perhaps especially more important, more than ever, to adopt the lexicon that we use, the Go Free lexicon, because it's one of those, it's such a winning strategy. If you were recorded while using the lexicon, it's a whole lot more difficult to socially lynch somebody for what they say using the lexicon than it would be when they're using phraseology and terminology that exists from within the anti-white narrative. Biospirit?
Yeah, I think that's a great point, that the use of the lexicon really does negate the ability of these predators to victimize us in this way. That the more that we can get it out to people, the better off our people will be. And of course, the anti-whites know this. That's why they keep censoring us at every turn on every platform. So yeah, very good point.
Julia?
I don't have anything that to say that hasn't been said already, so I'll pass.
Mr. Eindel?
Yeah, I mean, great points. And from this point, I guess, and as you said, I mean, it's one thing to try to, I mean, arresting these people and then actually having justice are two completely different things. So it's really up to the people. It's up to us to not take our focus off of this just because it looks like we have a win for right now. This is kind of what happened in, like you brought up the Shiloh Hendricks situation. We kind of, I mean, everybody seemed like they kind of stopped paying attention to it for a few weeks, and then all of a sudden it comes out that she's being charged with I can't remember the exact charges, but they put a couple charges on her, and the first thing people did was they started up another GoFundMe for her, or continued the last one. I don't know. But that's the first thing people responded with was, let's start sending her money again. When in reality, we have to, like in this situation, it's if they don't hold these men accountable, then it's up to us to really kind of put pressure on the judges and the lawmakers to start. I mean, don't take your eyes off of this. Don't stop speaking out. Like, I know that sounds like it's a oversimplification, but that's really us using the lexicon and really kind of breaking people's conditioning, the anti-white psychological conditioning. That's really what has to happen, and the judges and lawmakers need to understand that we're not going to go away. We're not going to take our eyes off of this. Yeah, like you said, it's hard to imagine that they're all of a sudden they're going to start holding these anti-white rapists and invaders accountable. But I mean, we'll see. We can't, like I said, we can't take our focus off of it.
So in regards to Shiloh, my understanding is the original GoFundMe or Give Send Go is still active, and that's what people are donating to or redonating to again. So, of course, she's one of Western kind. We don't agree with how she handled the situation, but we certainly don't want her to get in trouble for, as Biospirit said, defending herself, the best way she knew how. So I'm not telling anybody not to donate to her. That is how you can if you would like to. Um, again, we've talked about changing the social morality, and I think it can't be understated how important that is, first and foremost. No greater example than, of course, the story up in the middle of the Jumbotron, where this beautiful Ukrainian girl, Irina Zarutska, was fatally stabbed for absolutely no reason whatsoever by this anti-white piece of shit in Charlotte, North Carolina. I won't even bother saying his name because fuck him, that's why. A career criminal who should have never been walking free, but thanks to the white erasure of our Western norms and standards and the anti-whiteism in our courts, the white erasure of our court system, he was free to sit there on a bus or a train, or I think it was a train, and she comes into the train, she sits down in front of him like she should absolutely be able to do in one of our Western white homelands, and was stabbed fatally in the neck for absolutely no goddamn reason. And it's important to remember that social morality is the first thing that needs to change because of the reaction that you see from so many people. It's very dangerous and pointless. People saying, well, we need to send all the blacks back to Africa. And it's such nonsense. First of all, that's not going to happen in our lifetime. Second of all, how would you do that anyway? You would never accomplish that without changing social morality that first says that we should not be victimized on the basis of our birth being white people. You have to change that social morality. We have to end anti-whiteism, or get at least a percentage of the white population to agree that we should not be harmed, and that anything that is harmful to us needs to be dealt with. The only way that's going to happen is when we become a people, act like a people, behave like a people, and freaking love ourselves as a people. Because otherwise, you can blink your eyes tomorrow, send every black person back to Africa. But then what? If you don't change the social morality, what happens? They come back. Mr. Blue Flame, good afternoon. Good to see you. Gladiators here. Good to see you. Come on in, Blue Flame.
Hey everyone. Um, I'm trying to remember everything I wanted to say. uh, Speaking about these courts, this whole court business and anti-whites being held accountable and all of that. I guess we always have to remind ourselves is that it's a marathon, right? And yeah, I keep I keep saying it is that, and it is the truth, is that everything has been better than it was than, let's say, 10 years ago, from my observation. And it's not even in the last 10 years how it was compared to today. You can barely even compare it. Like a lot of the taboo has been broken, but yeah, it's always going to be like these big sweeping moments of change in society are actually very rare phenomena that are usually preceded by the stage where we are in, which is, I guess, what could you call that? The warming up. If we see it slowly but surely becoming more and more difficult for anti-whites to simply victimize us without consequences, that is actually the path towards us reclaiming our fate or destiny, whatever you want to call it. And yeah, I think it's always important to remember is that it's a gradual process. It's not an immediate one. So all else is for people to, well, for us to keep advocating, and hopefully, well, I'm pretty certain that more people will always show up. Some of them will go again, but others will really sink or dig their heels in. Yeah, let's go with that. Dig their heels in and really go full on, as many here of us do, and keep pushing. Simply keep it up and understand. It's multi-generational. We have the we have the good luck to be in this position where we can lay a solid foundation, and that is going to be somewhat more so the truest part of the legacy of our generation that lives today, I would say. So try to bear that in mind. It is frustrating, I know. There is still a lot of injustice, but gradually, over time, it's going to get better and better until you reach a certain number of the population who take it on, and then the true big movements waves come, and most will probably never know where it truly started. But hey, that's I do not know if it's scope on my part, but if man cannot judge it or see it, well, divinity will. Whether you're Christian or pagan or whatever it's going to be, that is actually a little bit by the wayside, I would almost say, in that regard. Nobody will ever be able to speak ill of us that we did our utmost for our own, and that's something for our personal selves, I would say. But that's how I look at it. And now I wanted, if someone would be so kind as to say, like, the second topic, what was just mentioned just before I started speaking. Can someone give me a keyword, because it slipped from my head while I was saying this? I might add a little bit more.
Good afternoon, VV. Good to see you. We were discussing the middle story up in the Jumbotron, and that is the deadly assault at the anti-white terrorism attack on the Ukrainian girl here in the U.S. on the North Carolina subway train.
Hmm. Yeah, you know what? And isn't this the second Ukrainian woman that gets murdered in the US by anti-whites now? I think there was another one about a week ago or 2 weeks ago, tops. It happened very closely after that debacle, where you're just an entire crowd of anti-whites were surrounding a few white people, and a man and a woman were beaten up. Like something very closely thereafter happened to another Ukrainian woman who had fled the war. I mean, it's utter madness. But uh, yeah, you know what it also is, guys, and this is something that I notice is we can point at the actual criminal, and yes, we should. There's definitely that aspect. Why is this anti-white free to do this? How is that anti-white on the streets after what was it, 14 times being in front of a judge or something like that? Ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous. An irredeemable monster who hates whites, ruining lives whenever the opportunity is there to do so. Um, there is no there is no getting right with that. It's evil through and through. The other aspect of that is though these women come out of a war zone. You would think that they would have, like, I don't know. It's like with what idea did they enter the US, that there was some sort of paradise where you can just sit back? Like, are these, is she, that model or whatever she was, was she even remotely aware, of anti-whiteism? You come out of a war zone, don't you have like an inner, like a survival instinct that should still be active? Like, you're still a sort of like nervous wariness. Like, what is going on? How do you even, like, it's like, I'm not sure if that, actually, I'm genuinely at a loss of words for that. You come out of a situation where your life was in danger, like what, 24/7 basically. It's like one bomb or one bullet going the wrong way and you're gone, so to speak, or you're bleeding out on the floor, covered in concrete and whatever else. People screaming all around you, the ones that live for a little while. And you come out of a situation like that, you end up in the US, and suddenly, poof, like that sense of I need to get away, I need to get to safety. It's as if it was achieved rather than it's still being active. It's so bizarre to me, absolutely bizarre. I guess they did a whole number on Ukrainians as well with anti-Whiteism. I mean, it's everywhere, right? But yeah, yeah. It's so yeah. I've really started to look into the direction of, okay, another one of us was kidnapped or beaten up or stabbed or what have you. Uh, how at this point? How can someone be so unaware? Or like, do they live with a fantasy of it will never happen to me? Because of course there are those types that, like, all these murders and kidnappings. It's always someone else, yeah, until it isn't, and it's happening every day now, every hour. A mugging here, a rape there, a killing there, whatever it's going to be. Like, at which point do people realize it's like, yeah, this is about to happen to me? Not an if anymore, it's a matter of time at this stage. And that is not to create paranoia, but it's to, it's that wariness of back in the day when we were in the jungle and the cave tigers or whatever were lurking all over the place. You could have a moment to relax and laugh here and there, but most of the day it would be business, or you weren't going to make it. And we are back in that situation. It's like, what is going on? Yeah, I guess I'm ranting a little bit, but there has to come a point, I think, where we also gonna have to say it's like, it's not your fault that it happened to you, but it is your fault that you thought that it was never possible in the first place. Something like that. I don't know, or maybe that's too harsh. I have no idea what the best approach is there. But people really need to start being held accountable, for being couch potatoes. It's like, this is survival, and the looking away of it is disgusting because uh, other people get hurt that way too. I mean, I've told the story before. I had to face some real monster when I was rather young. if someone else had spoken up, then I would have never needed to do that. And it's the same with anyone else, you know. Oh well, nothing going on. What's the weather like? How is the football game? Yada yada. Well, they truly well have heard enough cases of something going wrong in the West here or there. They're just repressing it and forcing everyone around them to repress it too. Yeah. Now that is truly the frustrating part, I would say. That is truly the part where I'm just at the loss for words. But yeah, anyways, others wants to speak, so I'll leave it here.
Well, to be quite honest, Blue Flame, it doesn't really surprise me so much. Again, I grew up in a part of the country, my country, which wasn't particularly white erased, and I live in a place now that's really not white erased at all. That doesn't mean that my neighbors are white positive, and as I've discussed many times in the space, I am acutely aware that at best I'm surrounded by mostly vagues who, because they have never really experienced anything like this personally, they don't have any real barometer for it. It's something that happens somewhere, but it's not really a problem to them. They're very much white, vague, or even anti-white because, well, if somebody, it's a crime that happens, and whites commit crimes too, or any one of the other ridiculous anti-white tropes that we hear. Uh, it doesn't hit home until it hits home. Mr. Eindelen.
Yeah, this is an incredibly frustrating situation right here. And I saw the video and everything, and it's see, this stuff really it invokes an emotional response in our people because, and I understand what the Blue Flame's saying. But the thing is I saw a lot of what looked kind of like victim blaming, and the fact is she was leaving a war torn Eastern Europe for the arms of Western civilization, which she was probably at some point under the impression and told that this is supposed to be a safe haven for refugees and for all these other refugees that come here leaving supposedly war torn areas. They're not even there. A lot of them are what you would call an economic migrant. I mean, she probably thought that this was supposed to be where she was supposed to be safe, and in all reality, she should have been. But for our people, it's different. It's just another fucking death sentence for our people. But for everybody else, they come here and they get taken well care of. And she got stabbed in the neck. I mean, it's absolutely disgusting. But at the same time, this is where we also get a lot of our criticism from because we're the ones that have to we have to do the slow work of planting seeds of white positivity and convincing our people that the solution is not cutting the heads off of these people, but like I said, you got to plant the seeds of white positivity and let our people know like that's where we have to go with this. It's hard though because you see this stuff and even I look at it like, man, it's because I come from a violent city too, and it's you do have to live a certain way. You have to always be completely aware of your surroundings and uh, you're foolish if you're not. But this woman, she had no idea, and it happened in seconds. She looked like she was dressed in some type of maybe a work uniform or something, and she gets on there and she takes up the least amount of space as possible. She's kind of like hunched over. She sits down, and within seconds, this animal just takes advantage of that. But yeah, this is a tough one. She should have been safe. I know what we're up against, but uh, it's still not right.
To your point, Eindelen, she's wearing the hat and shirt from the pizzeria she worked at. That's what she was doing for employment. You know, if our standards weren't white erased from us, this piece of shit would have been under the fucking jail years ago, and he wouldn't have been roaming free. And it's North Carolina. This isn't Los Angeles or New York. I don't think it's unreasonable for her to have had some expectation that perhaps she should have been safe. All our brothers and sisters in Western kind should be safe in our homelands. Mr. Biosphere of the West.
Yeah, the thing that I was thinking about with this one is how so often our governments, our people in leadership positions are encouraging our people to white flight. So I was thinking of how Trump, in response to what's going on in South Africa, his answer to that is to just have everyone come to the United States. And yet, how is that going to be any more safe for them than staying in South Africa? How is this woman she certainly wasn't any safer coming here than being in the Ukraine. So basically, they're just shuffling us around like the deck chairs on the Titanic. What difference does it make whether they bring a whole bunch of us here, or we go there, or we try to move here, or we try to move there? They've unleashed these animals inside our once pristine nursery, and they're going after us, and nobody is doing anything about it. In fact, they're being let out of the jails. They're not being punished in any way when they do these things, and they know it, and so they keep doing it with even more impunity. So it's as if the entire Western world has become some kind of horrific, demonic, insane asylum where we're all living inside the insane asylum with the lunatics. And it seems the only people who are moderately safe are the exorbitantly rich and the politicians who have free bodyguards. And the rest of us are just on our own, no matter where we are. I mean, this stuff happens everywhere now. It happens in Maine. It happens in New Hampshire. It happens in the country in North Carolina. It doesn't matter where you are. This kind of stuff happens. It happens to a little girl in Scotland. It happens to little girls in Germany, in France, everywhere in the West now. And so anyone who is still saying that the answer is to bring them to safety here is just blowing smoke. It's just a bunch of cope.
Yeah, very well said, Biosphere. Sooner or later you run out of places to white flight to. And you can't, because anti-whiteism is everywhere. And that's why we have to change that. We have to change the social morality. There is no other way. You're not going to deport out. You're not going to get rid of it. Like I said earlier, if you got rid of all these animals tomorrow, they'd be back within a month. If you don't end anti-whiteism, they'll be back because anti-whites will welcome them back. Mr. Eindel.
No, that's the point too. That's like we say is, I mean, people, like I said, we get criticism for this, but that's what it comes down to, is changing the social morality. Because for every one that we physically send back or say cut the head off of, there's another there's another whole boatload of them that are being shipped over by anti-whites, especially anti-white white people. But on the, and I know we said before that we shouldn't be reacting to every comment that we see. But I saw a lot of victim blaming in these comments, and it really kind of irritated the shit out of me because one comment that was going back and forth was there was somebody that said, "Well, where was her male chaperone?" Especially I mean, very specific times and everything too. After 6 p.m., she should have had a male chaperone and all this shit. Like this is our norm. Like of course, now looking back on it, because of what happened, yeah, of course, it would have been great if she had a male with her to protect her. But this isn't something that's just natural to Western civilization. It's becoming that way because of the erasure of our norms and values. But that's I mean, that's not. This doesn't. These ideas don't represent our homelands. But for people to just kind of they put the focus on her as if what did she do wrong and say nothing about the what led to this and how we get out of it. It was irritating me real bad.
Yeah, what male chaperone? Hmm? What male chaperone? We didn't used to need male chaperones because when our Western standards were enforced, people knew that if you messed with a woman in public, you got guillotined. We severely punished you. What male today? Some anti-white nutless piece of shit who's gonna recoil at the instant something happens, like that ballless peckerhead at the baseball game who let some butch-haired dyke come over and steal a baseball from him and shrieked in horror as she approached. Yeah, I agree. I know that those guys are. I'll just leave it at that. You have to end this. You have to change the social morality, end anti-whiteism, bring back masculinity, and you know we've discussed it many times, Mister Blue Flame.
You know what's interesting with that, and that's actually something I wanted to speak of earlier too. It's there is the stubborn resistance to from where we come, right? We want to assert the morality that is white well-being on society once again. We want to restore it, and we want to keep it in place proper. And we now have the tools to make that happen to a very huge percentage, so to speak. Um, Over the years, I have run into so many whites, who claim that they care about our people. And then when I discuss this with them, they start like giggling, or they're like dismissive, or it's like no, 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 because they have their ideological path set before them, which they must follow, or whatever it's going to be. And like this made me really ponder. But then over the years, through just the experience of having to deal with so many types, like I've talked to hundreds, if not maybe even thousands of people, I don't know, quite a vast number at any rate. um the ones who are very resilient to this are also those who happen to be very rotten characters in general. And that doesn't need to mean that they're criminals, but they crave power. They crave power over others, which basically they're the type who live by the code, is that they want to crush the tyrant's head so that they can be tyrants in his stead. That doesn't come from me, that line. I can't honestly say where I got that from. It's been too long. Maybe I'll remember it at some point. But yeah, these types are not interested in being good people. What they are interested in, why they want a white race around, is because we provide as a race a lot of goodies, right? With us, you have international trade. With us, you have excellent medicine. With us, you have the coolest cars or whatever it's going to be, the prettiest paintings, blah blah blah, whatever it is they want. And this is also why there is this sickening demand in so many to, for example, try to resurrect long dead ideologies and try to like hopelessly keep them going, because that is a hierarchical system that they can set up. And what do they always call themselves? They see themselves as the top dog or one of the top dogs, and that is usually what betrays them. They are also the same types who want, again, that is nothing but about control. And yeah, what do they really want? Why do they want the white race around? Also, is just that the beautiful women for all sorts of gratification, right? Um, but they are not driven by a sense of justice, a sense of responsibility, or a sense of goodness. If they need to sacrifice white lives to achieve whatever they want to achieve, they will do so. And if you come in there and you present to them, it's like, hey, we have a system, we have a morality here by which we can recapture our fate as a people, that gets in the way of them. They are also enormously resistant. Well, not resistant. They're enormously in opposition of. Yeah, that makes more sense. They really hate it when you say that there is something like a white anti-white. And that is very interesting. There's also a giveaway. It's a huge red flag when someone has a problem with that. Because if you cannot call out white anti-whites, well, that means that it of course means that the white ones who are opening the doors for, as as was just said, right? They will open the white anti-whites will open the door for the non-white anti-whites, and we're right back to this mess. Yeah, if you get them all kicked out, which is ridiculous at this point in time, at any rate. Um, but yeah, if you look at the personal aspect of it, the individual themselves, if you bring in morality, you get in the way of what they want for themselves. Because they know they're rotten apples too. They absolutely know that their desires or their motivation for life is despicable. And they don't want people to be able to see that. So they have to keep terms like white and anti-white out. That is why you see so many, when you use the term anti-white, they always refer to non-whites. They try to twist it in that manner because then it keeps the what's that called? It keeps people from seeing them. That is what they want. They still want to have that mask, and you know, it's not always stupidity, or it's not always just blind stubbornness or whatever it's going to be, or ego, and like all of these have a part in that. But there is the vast majority, I would say, who really take issue with white well-being are the same ones who would be seen as white anti-whites, simply the right-wing version, to make it to make it simplified. And that is also something we need to be really wary of, and maybe we need a few more memes about that. Which, because and this is a bit of an aside, calling out white anti-whites is actually one of the most effective things and most brilliant things that we can do when you really think about it. Because you have a society that likes to take a dump on whites. We understand this, right? Now, if you say that there is a white anti-white, you are, to an anti-white, for example, you are taking a dump on whites. So they're not going to necessarily naysay that aspect. It's the it's calling out anti-whites out in and of itself that is what frustrates them, of course. But there's something there where they'll permit it in as far as that you then take a dunk on whites, because they cannot defend whites, right? They're completely trapped. And yeah, again, big applause to Jason. It's absolutely brilliant. But yeah, I guess coming back to my initial point in that is, yeah, is just the understanding of there are many who willfully try to twist it or willfully don't want us to speak about white anti-whites because they are. They are simply the right wing version. They are the NS version. They are the ones who want whites around because we are useful in regards to their personal desires. And yeah, I guess I just wanted to add that to the conversation because that is very important to realize. As far as these demands, like with Shiloh or anyone else, like where is your chaperone? Yep, yakety yak, whatever. Uh, there are actually places in Europe where this takes place. Uh, you have gyms that have been set up. Like some of them are already been around since like 2016 and stuff like that, with a bunch of anti-whites who they prey on women or whatever it's going to be, or they smash up clubs in the evening, whatever it's going to be. There are actually responses throughout Europe of these gyms of guys who get together, they train, they make contact with each other, and any family, anyone in the neighborhood, anyone that they can reach with their car or on foot or whatever it's going to be, can call them, and I think it's even mostly free of charge. You know, they will look after your daughter. They will look after they will look after you, whatever it's gonna be, really. Now, their focus was one of these gyms that I know. Their focus was specifically women, especially young girls. Well, adolescent girls and all of that who want to go to party in the evening or whatever, and then these guys are gonna be on standby, the whole time, right? And the clubs want to let them in because they know is that when these anti-whites try to smash up their joint, these guys are going to intervene. So they get a few free drinks and they call it a day, right? Not really that much skin on the nose of those clubs, but yeah, what have you? That does actually exist, but yeah, compared to the actual need for it, yeah, a little bit undermanned. Um, and yeah, to expect that we the silliness is again, like the morality that we bring would instill that in communities, that sense of protecting each other, and there they are, complaining that it isn't there, but at the same time they're getting in the way of it. It's unbelievable, absolutely unbelievable. But yeah, I'll leave it here.
Janitor of White Noir.
Um, Tree Godfather brought up the standards of justice and civility. Biospirit West, he brought up the pretext of these I don't know, the people who just don't use the right tools. They have they say that France, South Africa, Germany should go to the United States. And then Blue Flames was about the victims and the lived experience in their anti-white narrative. And then Eindolin was saying about the collateral beneficiaries. But Jason's appearance in Thursday's Shade Tree was, we have to address the victimization of white people as white people and not stand-ins. Because and that's why I think that has to be addressed before all those all of your ideas, because it's a wish for France and South Africa to colonize. The United States example of Rhode Island and Georgia.
Good afternoon, Ivan the Horrible. Mr. Eindelen.
So yeah, what the Blue Flame was saying, as far as like having these gyms with these men that they're training, and they are there to provide the service in the event that somebody asks for it. I think all that's great, especially on a community level. It's great to be able to have that show of force on hand. And but the thing is that's one thing with this comment that I was referring to, is that he also mentioned like a specific time. He said, well, why isn't she walking with a chaperone after 6 p.m., which gives the wrong impression that the anti-white victimization is on some type of a time schedule, which, yeah, we could protect our women after the sun goes down, and make it a thing to uh, make sure that they're not alone when they go out and about. That would be great. But as you said too, it's an undermanned effort for sure. Because if we did have enough men that were willing to stand up and be there at all times, we wouldn't be in such a bad state that we're in right now. I think as a man, though, you should always be there. Like you should always be prepared to protect your most vulnerable, your loved ones especially. But as we've seen, it's just the way society is now. You just can't always be there. Unfortunately, that's just a kind of a fact of life right now. Um, but yeah, I mean, just the idea that our victimization happens on a timeline too. I think for this person that was leaving these comments that were pretty much victim blaming is very very misinformed and confused about what we're up against. I mean, we our victimization can happen at any time, any moment, and anywhere. So, but I just wanted to kind of respond to that.
Okay, what about Cincinnati Holly? She had male chaperones. They still got jumped. How many couples get jumped before 6 p.m. in broad daylight? Tons of white couples just walking down the street, and these anti-white pieces of shit will jump them and attack them. So do we keep moving the goalpost? Now she needs 2 chaperones, and when that's not enough, we go, well, she should have had 3. Well, that's the problem when you don't address the root problem, isn't it? Right? The root problem being the white erasure of our people, norms, customs, standards, and the systemic anti-whiteism and the anti-white immoral imperative. If you don't address that, you're just chasing goalposts, aren't you? Eindlin?
No, you're absolutely right. Yeah, I mean, and it would be great if this is how we could if we had the manpower and everything else. But at the end of the day, it's chasing your tail, because as you said, I mean, it starts off with one, and then that's not going to be enough. So where does it end? I mean, it's the bringing these Western values back. That's where we have to go with this. But that's, like I said too, that's where we get a lot of our criticism from, because so many men see a situation like this, and our first reaction is an emotional one, where we think you got to fight fire with fire, and respond to this violence with more violence, and that's, when has that worked? It hasn't worked yet. And as I said, some of the comments that I saw in response to this situation is really people just kind of they I understand where they're coming from, because I guess I used to be the same way. I used to feel that way too. I wish there was a way we could just like fight our way out of this, but we're more than just fighting our way out of a corner. It's not that easy. I mean, if it was, we wouldn't be in this situation.
I'm going to read in a couple of comments while I got it in mind. Janice writes, Muslims will judge and say their way is best. Don't allow women out without a male relative companion. But of course, that's not our biospirit. That's somebody else's. She also wrote, Cincinnati Holly, again, Muslims will say she shouldn't have been at a club. It should have been covered. If the anti-whiteism isn't tackled, another people will establish their laws that may work but are not our ways. Absolutely correct, Janice, 100%. That's not a reflection of our biospirit. When I go out, I don't want to see somebody else's biospirit reflected out in the world. I want to see my own. Cool Papa J stopped in to say, we are hanging out with my parents today. Enjoy the space, y'all. Mr. Biospirit of the West.
Yeah, listening to all of this about the, supposedly we now have to have personal bodyguards for each and every one of us, or a whole contingent of bodyguards or something, is just not us. This is not the West. This is not Western civilization. And it reminded me of what Jason was saying on one of the gatherings recently about Washington, D.C., where the cucks are all jumping up and down about him bringing the military in to solve the situation. And is that the kind of country you want to live in? That we're at the point where our capital city has to have the military brought in to bring back order? I don't. I'm with Jason on that. That isn't the kind of country that is a Western country. That is a third world country. That's what third world countries do. They bring in their military to restore order because it's such a mess. It's so disorderly. It's so non-Western. And it's the same thing with these situations that we're seeing that are going on. It's it's just not of our biospirit. I don't want to live that way. We shouldn't have to live that way. We should not have to be put in these types of positions. But the more that white erasure continues, the more that's going to increase. So that, as we can see with the way that Trump is talking about sending in the National Guard to Chicago next, and he's talking about doing it with other cities. And look at the anti-whites screaming about that. They don't want an end to the victimization of Western kind. They don't want an end to the destruction of Western civilization. They want it to continue. And unless we put an end to this evil morality, this will continue and it will get worse. So I hope that we are reaching as many people as we can with this message to have you adopt the Go Free method, because it is the only method that's going to ultimately work, unless you want to live in the third world for the rest of time.
Yeah, you're right on, Biospirit. I want my granddaughters to be able to live a life like we did when I was young. My sisters rode bikes in shorts, rode around town. Nobody bothered them. They were perfectly safe. We didn't have to have tanks on every corner to keep foreign imported pedophiles from raping my sisters. I don't want my grandchildren to have to deal with wearing a burqa, still get raped by some imported foreign pedophile, while there's tanks on every corner. I think that's ridiculous. That's not us, as you said. That is not Western kind. We have norms, we have standards. They need to be enforced harshly, swiftly, severely. And with that, Mr. Eindland.
Yeah, you're both spot on. Absolutely right. Unfortunately, I've seen lately too is like this re-emerging idea. And I'm glad Janice brought it up too. because I've seen it, especially in these Nick Fuentes circles. Some of the ideas that he's pushing right now is even more, instead of just a non-white coalition of people that just hate Jews. He's talking about these alliances with Muslims now, saying I mean, and this is supposed to be the trad cat fucking religious whatever they are. I mean, isn't that what he is? Catholic or something? But then you turn around and he's talking about forming this alliance with Muslims. And that's just a testament to the complete lack of masculinity that we've seen, that white men would, because that's the only way that it would happen. White men would have to submit to Islam to basically get control of our civilization. And what kind of crazy idea is that? But that's what they're pushing. And I've seen they're not exactly calling it white Sharia like they did several years ago. But I remember how popular of an idea, which is what started off as a meme. It was a joke. But I mean, some people took it so serious that they were like, well, maybe we do need to start adopting more of a Islamic type of civilization. And like you both said, that doesn't it's completely incompatible with Western civilization. So it would start off with these escorting our women everywhere they go, because of course these men, they have nothing else to do with their time, that they can do that. And then of course that doesn't necessarily work either. So then what, we start making our women cover up everywhere they go. It's just complete nonsense. But that's what they're pushing in these other circles now. And I mean, it's not a joke. It's not a meme. They're dead serious. They're like, oh well, I mean, we hate these Jews so much that let's just submit to Islam, and it's just complete anti-white poison.
Yeah, it really is. You know, and I did notice the Fuentes fighting fucktard that came in here earlier kept requesting a mic. Yeah, he can go fuck himself, and I'm glad nobody gave him one. Because I'm really not in the mood to screw around with any of their happy horse shit today. You know, we're being victimized, and these little assholes want to come in here and spurg their bullshit using crap that don't work. It's never worked. It's never going to work. Take the focus off us and try to defeat what we're doing here. No, he can go land on Fuentes' cock and fuck off, because I'm really not in the mood. So it's just my 2 cents on that. Our friend Gladiator left a comment. She says, I was awake most of the night evaluating how I should love for my people, weighing out my motive when sharing on certain topics. If what I'm sharing may cause any such harm to anyone, bro or sis, I do not need to share it, period. Very beautifully put, Gladiator. And remember that we do love you. In other words, I'm starting to question how does what I say affect us as a whole beforehand. Very, very mature, smart comment. Janice writes, I do not follow Fuentes. I had no idea they were pushing that. Yeah, it's just another low IQ bunch of crap from the usual, I'm a Mexican gay retard. Hi, Dylan.
Yeah, so I mean, yeah, that's definitely what they're pushing over there. And the thing is too is Fuentes, he's also gone in this different direction. It's really, and I'm not 100% sure. This is just an observation that I've made, because I don't follow him either. Lately, he's almost become unavoidable on YouTube, and I hate to say it, but I still very much use YouTube, and I try to use it as much as I can. And as I said before, I'm just heavily censored, so it's hard to share our concepts over there. But it's almost I watch some of these clips, and keep in mind too, like this is supposed, when they clip this stuff, it's supposed to be the big whatever you want to call it. It's the clips are supposed to be, I mean, we all know what clips are. It's supposed to be the best take out of the whole show or whatever the hell he does. But that's what he's doing. And but he's reacting to a lot of non-whites. There's a few black guys that he's been commenting on, and they're going more civic nationalist. That's just the way it looks to me. But he's also he's trying to take some of the concepts that we use and twist them around in a way that doesn't work. But I really think that some of these people, they see the white well-being community and what's been working, and they want to try to put their own spin on these concepts. But like I said, it never works that way. I also wanted to say something Blue Flame mentioned earlier about calling out, doing more excuse me, calling out the anti-white whites. I really think that's another way to go too, and to make these people understand that um, there's no amount of anti-whiteism that they can participate in that would ever be enough to satisfy the anti-white regime. That's never going to happen. And I know that makes it sound simple. And if it was that easy, then we wouldn't have so many anti-white people. But it's really it goes almost hand in hand with the now separating ourselves from these Jewsburgs and everything else. Is I mean, we talk about it a lot kind of behind the scenes too, where I mean, somebody had brought it up that Arvel now seems to be making more Jaceberg type comments when Return to the Land originally was supposed to be innocent white communities. But I don't think anybody's really surprised either. It's just I just worry that, as we said before, that these people are being pushed to the top, and it's a manufactured effort to basically demonize all of us, and that we'll all just kind of be swept away in the same dustpan as these people, unless we really do separate ourselves from these ideas.
Very well said, my friend. Yeah, the concepts only work if you apply them as Jason wrote them and developed them. There's no other way. They can't pick and choose which ones they want to try and which ones they can't, because that's a pure path to failure. It's not just about using the words, it's about the whole dialectic has to be applied properly. Seeing Arville start the Jaceberg crap, yeah, that's disappointing. He could, if he had chosen to be a proper leader and had picked up his lexicon as Jason dropped on him very effectively, he could have been an absolute stud and a hero for RT for Return to the Land. Instead, he's chosen a path. It looks like that we already know where it's going to lead. It's going to lead to failure. As sure as I'm sitting here, it's not going to work, and his whole thing's going to collapse on him. It's sad to see. You mentioned YouTube. I want to just quickly update for those that weren't here. Yesterday we did try streaming the space into YouTube. That went well. I couldn't get it to go today, and I think I know why. I didn't host yesterday, and I think that makes the difference with being able to log in on two devices. So my cure for that is I think I'm going to create a second account, just like a listening account that I can keep logged in on the laptop, and then that'll be the listening account for the space to send it to YouTube. And then it won't matter whether or not I'm hosting on my phone, which is what I'm doing now. Just figured I'd throw that out there. Janitor of White Noir.
I can totally oh uh okay, actually I know I'm using Mac. I don't think you'd probably use Mac, but I figured out recently how to do this like audio thing, kind of relevant to what you're doing. So maybe I could help you, but if you're not using Mac, then it's a different operating system, so probably not. Um so I'm going to be outreaching again tomorrow to that influencer. And I'm thinking that we don't have to I because I got into Go Free. Let me think, like I'm really not sure, but let me think, like I think it was spring, maybe winter. either a year ago. I think about then, yeah. I'm not sure actually. September, maybe like January 24. Put it there. And maybe not even then. I actually don't have my dates correct. But so a little time after I started my account on here, what's her name? Sarah, a heretic to anti-whiteism who doesn't, know how to defend herself from a moral position, or our people. She was, on Instagram posting a uh some kind of event, and there was the Go Free book, and it was like right there on the image, and I was like going through outreaching to people in the comments there, because those are already people that are vagues, right? And so they just don't know how to like her herself. But she is more wants to make the mistakes that Arvel makes of just not using the right tools uh to waken anybody up. That this is the conclusion needs to be to see the victimization as the illness, and that it only needs to be cured with inside white people. So, and only tiny percentage, but yeah, you don't have to go to anti-whites. And I see that a lot of times from Tree Godfather, even though I'm trying to say how long I've been seeing, like, what is the best thing to do, because I outreach to some of those people in the comments on that heretic post where it showed the Go Free book. It wasn't, like um a great picture of it. It was just in the reference of her meeting some event people. So someone, was introducing to her some books. Only one of them matters. And so I outreached, and one guy was super receptive. And it was like I didn't outreach that much, but it was like an immediate. And I've only gotten better. So at outreaching and recruiting people to um to the white positive morality, he super accepted it because he wasn't an anti-white. He was just didn't know how to defend, and he was like, yeah, everything you're saying makes sense or whatever. And it was, that's what you want every time. You want the heretic to come on your side because you're speaking to the audience. Um, and they just don't know how to defend our people from the victimization. And when you go to an anti-white and you're just going to tell them, and then especially you're going to drop references to Go Free, that's not what you want to, do, because they're not a prospect. They're not going to, be redeemed. And it also leads them to be able to come and like be a mercenary, I think. Yeah.
Good afternoon, City Bin. Good to see you. Mr. Blue Flame, come on in.
Well, yeah, it's disgusting, isn't it? Because here's the thing. I mentioned it before, I think. Some of his community are on Twitter as well. And I only figured that out because they were, it was some chat where they were talking about it's like, yeah, I'm part of it and that sort of thing. And they were talking about, yeah, they were going into some specific detail of how to build something or whatever it was. I don't remember the details there. But I remember that I dropped a comment in there. It's like, hey guys, I'm doing this sort of thing. Arvel had a talk with a guy called Jason. I just wanted to leave you this, and I left one of the memes that we have, right? And they were receptive to it. It was very brief, but it was, yeah. these people were really they seemed really interested, or they were glad for what we were doing, what I was sharing with them. Um, and then I have to wonder is like, do all of these people who are now also going to be targeted when Arvel is going because he is their spokesman, right? Do they want any of this mess? There are like, weren't there like women with children in there? This guy, yeah, it just fills me with such anger. It really does, because I get a sense that, why is he tagging along like so many others? He's looking at that money, I suppose. That what is his name again? Yeah, the Fuentes. Yeah, the kind of money and attention that's flowing in there. I think that is what is really speaking to Marvel. Whoa, well, imagine if I was a millionaire, shitting on another race, really hoping to achieve that. And maybe he is getting money for it. You never know at this point in time. But he has already been having this half-arsed back and forth with some anti-white, in journalism, as I guess they call that. There have been people that were invited who were clearly just treading all over his hospitality and making anti-white insinuations left, right, and center. And still, he's just walking right into it. And apparently, to me, it really seems that not giving a toss at all about these other people in that community, who are now also going to have to bear the brunt of these coming anti-white attacks, whether it's legal, whether it's gang showing up there, whatever it's going to be. And then they're going to do their call out. They're going to do their call out to all of these people who are now applauding them. And with a bit of luck, they'll have a fundraiser going. And I have to wonder, is this what you wish for that community? That is sick. That is really sick, to be willing to risk the lives of all of those people. But I do not see any other reason. Why? What other reason could there be? The big audience? What does that mean? With all these bots out there, and being from the religious subgroup that guy is, not Arvel, the other one. Um, Again, uh, that Fuentes creature might have the backing of some big figures. Nobody is going to tell me that thing naturally just got the attention he did. No way. Not buying it for one goddamn second. There is money and there is a lot of finicking with bots and who knows what behind all of that. Someone had his palm greased and suddenly this thing, made it into the stratosphere with attention and what have you. Um, and is now actively poisoning everyone as much as possible. But again, only the rotten apples will fall for this. Someone who really cares, who has integrity, who loves other people, will never do anything as such, even if it is for money or whatever it's going to be. And it is disappointing. I think it was Tree Father that you said it is disappointing, but it is also sickening. It's like anti-leadership on display right there. Like basically him going on, just one step short on going on his knees and bending his head, sticking his hands out and going, "Master, can I please have a part of your tithe?" That is really what it looks like to me. It couldn't be more wretched. This is not what white men do. That is, oh. Yeah, like I'll never get over that. I think it's like we come from mountaineers. We had guys who had to, on a daily basis, had to look out for scalpers in the jungle. Who could come and kidnap you or burn your stead down whenever, at whim. In not often cases, right? And laugh as they do it. And out of such men who had to fight it and overcome it, these types, are the result. It's like, what happened, man? Really, like, or maybe the entire community there is rotten, but I would be surprised given my interactions with them. I think some really just want a place of their own where they're left alone. Anti-whites won't let them, and now Arvel has opened the door for anti-whites to come in and say, to condemn everyone, every single one of them, and anti-whites will. And it's, yeah, yeah, absolutely despicable. There is no excusing it. There is no, there's, yeah. I don't know whether this is just one thing after the other today that just leaves me speechless in regards to how absolutely mental mental it all is. And maybe I should be at a point where I'm not really phased by such things anymore. But yeah, even after, I guess it also speaks a lot about someone's character, and that is not only Arvel, it's a whole lot of others, right? You have someone as Jason again. I guess it comes back down to what I was saying earlier with white anti-whites. They pose themselves as, oh, I care for my people and I want to do the right thing and I love you all and blah 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 blah, and then at the end of the day, if they then think that they are given a chance to, they don't have to use the morality anymore, like they immediately drop it and it's all straight to, okay, what is giving me, like, what is going to get me clout, what's going to fill up my pockets, and like in their heads, right? But that's all it needs to be. It's not about the actual reality, it's about what they think. No, like, how many, what's the word I'm looking for, like, whatever disgusting thing they think they have to do, like, oh well, they have no problem with that. Well, a few lives lost. The white race once again sees yet another project just fall into pieces. People who were defending them because they were, just regular white folks. That was a perception among many fakes who now are going to have to hear, it's like, oh, they were the Nazis after all. Is there actually anyone that can be trusted who's white? Yeah, that's going to be what's going to come out of this with many. All thanks to two swine as such. That is, and it will reflect badly on every single one of us. It is just unbelievable. Really unbelievable in a certain way. But anyways, I see that Janitor wants to speak, so yeah, I'm gonna leave it there.
Blue Flame, true leadership is doing the right thing, whether it's popular or not. I may only be, well, I think I got like 2,100, 2,200 follower account. I'll never be one of these big million follower accounts. But I promise you guys, I'll always at least try to do the right thing. Janitor of White Noir.
Thanks. Yeah. The conversation has circled back to what Eindolin was saying, at least with Blue Flame. I circled back to what Eindolin was saying about how you were not surprised about them. Anyways, I was remembering about how like I went into my history and I see, because I was kind of wondering, when did I find uh No White Guilt, and it was not this 2024 spring. And I know that because I joined a community, not joined, but I tuned into a live stream from a few videos from this creator called Carolyn Garashenko or something like that. And that was around the time when No White Guilt got into like a fight on the argument over the web or something like that. And so on her streams, it was the first stream I tuned into. Like I was saying, I saw videos like, oh, because I didn't know back then that what I was searching for was a morality. I thought it was something, some kind of connection to God or, um, like kind of weird esoteric, maybe like cravening and cowardice, but I didn't know. I didn't know that I was looking for morality. But anyways, so the first stream I turned into, and she's like on her phone with like, it sounded like some black like man, probably friendly to her. I don't really know. It was my like first stream, and I'm like, what is all this like drama? And so that that was like that was still me like trying to like know how to stand and have a position on something, but obviously I wasn't that connected to that community. And so I was like, I left. I was like, what is all this like crying about? Specifically, the conversation she had on the phone was about like so it went something like this. The guy was like, oh, don't worry, you know, people just this and that. And I didn't even know who was in that they were talking about No More Guilt or Kuna, or I was like, I was totally, you know, not in like in her community at all. So how am I gonna know? But and then she was like, she was like I don't know, like you know when you put your shoulders and you're sunk in your head, and it's like she's um like how can they all like leave me and stuff? And I was like, who are you talking about? Like what is going on? And then but because I still ended up over here with the white positive morality, it's good stuff.
Hey, man, you're in the right place. And that's what counts, isn't it? You know, not everybody's going to land here, but I think despite how it may sometimes appear from outside looking in, you can kind of listening to us. I'm still very positive. I agree with Blue Flames that we've made quite a bit of headway. I'm very encouraged by that. You know, I think there's still a lot more work to do, but we're getting there. I think we win in the end. More people just have to, you know, the white awakening is happening. I think more and more vagues are starting to realize, if nothing else, they're starting to realize that we are targeted for victimization. They may not know where to go or how to deal with it, but the first step is they have to be aware that we are, in fact, victimized on the basis of our birth. So that's step one. And of course, our job here, step two, is to bring them into the community that actually wins and try to steer them from the communities that don't. Mr. Eindelen.
Yeah, you absolutely right. And Janitor White Noord was talking about how he first heard about Jason. I remember before the introduction of Go Free, and Jason had I mean, Jason was literally everywhere, and he's mentioned this stuff before. Where I mean, he really kind of grew up in this. There isn't anything that's happened that he hasn't seen, or at least and even been a part of. But the one thing about Jason that I noticed, because I didn't adopt Go Free right away, I kind of held on to some of the more like spurred ideas for a while. And the amount of infighting and stuff that would happen between these groups, I would have like these phases where I would really be turned off from a lot of this stuff. And I mean, it just puts you in a really bad mind state. But the thing about the white well-being community and Jason in particular is being here. It reinforces itself. It validates itself, especially when you see people like I had mentioned before with Grace, where she a lot of these like spurred podcasters and stuff like that. They used to get a lot of their like material and stuff from her and I don't know if anybody remembers Pravada back in the day that used to he kind of did the same thing that Grace would do behind the scenes. These people really just fucked it all up, and they just I mean, a lot of these people, like I said, we've mentioned before how they've ruined their lives. But one thing is Jason has not changed. He's only progressed in thought and idea and strategy. He's the one person that has been consistent out of all of this. We've seen people, and I mean, we're all friends here, so I guess it doesn't matter if I name some names, I guess. But I mean, we've seen like even people like Mark Collette, like I mean, he was a big part of me, like realizing a lot of stuff. But at the same, and he was a great speaker, but at the same time, he also was one of the ones that thought Kanye West was going to be some type of like that. Him singing about the Jews and stuff was like a shift in the right direction for our people. It was ridiculous. Like that's one of those final nails in the coffin for me paying attention to them. But he's always been like I guess people have always kind of wanted Jason as like a co-host to kind of back up their own ideas, and for a long time he really kind of he went along with it. He really kind of he was very accepting of people's ideas, even if they weren't exactly his. But when he really came into his own and said, you know what, I got a strategy that's going to work, that's when things really changed for me too, because on one hand, I was seeing everybody flip flop and turn on each other in the worst ways possible, and at that time, Jason remained the same. So as you saw these people that at one point in time you may have looked up to and really thought of, and I'm talking about people like even like David Duke and stuff like if you I mean, Harold Covington had a word for it. I can't remember what it was, but he was a very serious person. But he had like a really silly word for this phenomenon that he noticed, and what was called for a while the alt right, but it's had a I guess neo Nazism and all that stuff. He had a word for it because he knew that these people were just like really behind the scenes. A lot of them were kind of scumbags and had little weird hobbies and not to get too much into it, but my point is like Jason, out of all of these people, he was around for it all, and he's the one he's like I said, he's never changed, he's never flip flopped, he's only evolved in ideas. So I mean, that's how I know like it validates itself being here. You know, you're in the right place. There's nowhere else to go, and I wouldn't want to be anywhere else. I just wanted to kind of say that, but yeah, it just feels good to be here. It's kind of like that saying, like it's lonely at the top. It's like we've all kind of had similar origin stories coming from other places, and then we ended up here, and hopefully we can bring more people along. But I mean, I just kind of wanted to say that.
Stumbling is here. Good afternoon or evening for you, I think. Very well said, Eindling. I'll tell you this. I've been in this game for 50 years. I have seen a lot of what's happened uh, even before Jason was here. Jason is very intelligent. He's articulate. He is well read. He's well studied in psychology. Something that's very important when you're dealing with psychological warfare. And he has indeed been extremely consistent. If you look at his oldest videos you can find and compare them to today, his message hasn't changed. If anything, he's only gotten more refined at delivering it. I agree so much that you have no idea. He is probably the best advocate I have seen in my time doing this since, well, I don't know, the online stuff since '83. So take that for whatever you think it's worth, but that's my opinion of Jason, and it's a very highly regarded one, or I have a very high opinion of him. Pardon me. Maybe the stroke took out my speech. Um, this I have seen so many different strategies in my time. I have seen so many that failed. Every single one of them, except this, because it's unbeatable. Maybe I'm being a little bit arrogant there, but I haven't seen anything better. Mr. Biospirit of the West. There's Biospirit tied up. That's all right. Gotcha. Mr. Blue Flame.
It's not really that much at this point that I can add. I think as far maybe as the lexicon being unbeatable in this or Jason's um outlook for as far as what I have seen. There have been changes over the years, but most of these changes, yeah, most of it actually has a lot to do with, or how shall I want to put it? It's something from the beginning that he once said is that the lexicon is incomplete. There is always going to be something that we haven't seen. There's going to be an evolution in society that requires us to adapt, improve, whatever one wants to call that, right? And that is uh, a healthy self-awareness, I suppose, to maintain. To always go with the assumption of we may have 99% of it, but there is always that 1%. And the athletes who end up winning the gold were the ones who looked at the tiniest of details. And that is something we have to do as well. The anti-whites will with their filth. So at the same way, so must we. Um, and I'm not really sure how much of that still is happening, but there was a period in time where Jason would really take on a lot of advice from other people in improvements with the lexicon. I haven't seen much of that anymore. But then there has been a time in those 10 years where I wasn't um, keeping up with him anymore. I was just too occupied with life. So, yeah. And then in my coming back, so to speak, yeah, I didn't catch much of that anymore. But I knew someone personally whose some of his lines are, I believe, in the updated versions of some of Jason's works, an updated version of Go Free or what have you. I think. Um, so yeah, very important. Always have that awareness of we strive for excellence. We want to achieve the best of the best. We want to be as precise as possible. But we always ever are going to be in need to search for that 1% that we don't have or that we don't yet know. And once we have that percentage, there's going to be a whole new percentage that's going to pop up out of nowhere. There's going to be the next one we need to look at or be wary of. Um, yeah, I think that is very important. As far as anything, in being unbeatable, no, it has to be said. It's like even from before I knew anything about white well-being or whatever, I was already speaking on behalf of our people. Just that care. Just that being sick of seeing the injustice everywhere. And it has gone for me personally, it's gone so much smoother, more smoothly, I suppose, than since I've learned this method, since I started working with it. It really did. uh, and what can I add to that? I guess that's my testimonial in that sense. I was already sort of advocating, I guess, but the process went a whole lot easier. Actually, it's a bit of a pity. I should actually be able to, well, I should be able to. I would wish I was able to find like some really old comments, like from 2007 or 2008, something crazy like that and just show you guys how what I used to type out to people. I would write in half a letter's worth per comment on, when YouTube was still a little bit more functional, I suppose, than I was today. And taking the back and forth home, like always, getting people to walk away from me. I think I can have that bragging right. But never really convincing anyone necessarily, and what a struggle it was to explain it all in a respectable way, getting my point across. Yeah, I suppose that's um well, what do I add to that? It definitely helped to run into his works for me. And like I myself, I can honestly say, guys, now throughout the years, I have helped people, in the sense of help them help themselves. That's what I like to call it. There's no such thing as helping someone. There's something like helping someone help themselves. Um, might seem like a minute, step in between for a lot of people, and that's fair enough, I guess. But I like to point it out as such. And there are people alive today for the work I've done that otherwise would have chosen to put a stop to it. There are people who um there are couples now where there were none before. There are people who uh who really picked up their lives. There are people who stopped looking with these poisonous mindsets at the world. I keep bringing up like the true rotten apples because it's a I guess that's just a thing. Like the worst ones stick with you, and the other, the people who turn around, it's kind of oddly enough they fade away because you can lower your guard in that sense towards them. Maybe that's the reason why that phenomenon exists as it does. And again, knowing about virtual being has always made it a lot more easy. It always has. Uh, so yeah. I can only applaud it as well. And maybe something as an aside as well. What I think of Jason as a man, that is actually here nor there in all of this too. We get a there has been a while when white well-being, like the advocates, got accused as being cultish, right? It's like as if we don't have a mind of our own or we cannot make our own contributions. It's like you couldn't have it more backwards. Like we were encouraged by himself even to have our own thoughts or what have you. And that was never really needed except for a few people. You really had some types who slavishly just wanted to follow Jason and was kind of creepy, in my opinion at least. Uh, but vast majority of people, it's like, oh, you have a way, all right, let's hear it. Oh man, that's yeah, that really works. Let's try and see if it works, and if it does, hey, we'll come back and we'll put some laurels, on your head or whatever it's gonna be, right? um and yeah, um it is with a respect towards the individual, while bearing in mind is that we have to work together as a collective. For us it's always been both. Other races, it's might be one, it might be the other, but that is irrelevant to us. We are our own unique being in that sense, and that's what we need to look at. But that's a bit of a side point. And you know I keep thinking that those at this those or many of them who oppose white well-being, oppose using the terms that bring that morality in. They have a vested interest to keep it away. Again, like anti-whites in their own regards. But like the variant of anti-white who simply wants to see us, they don't want to see us dead. They don't want to see us tortured because it gets in the way of us being their slaves. Yeah. And you see that in the right wing, right? But because yeah, it's like all these children vanishing, the kidnappings, whatever it's going to be. Uh, the very dark aspect. I'm not sure if anyone else here noticed that since that war between Russia and Ukraine started, um, there were all these pop-ups all across the internet now of Ukrainian women basically being prostituted and all of these horrors. Uh, Yeah, and not a word was said about it. Nothing done. Like a lot of whining and back and forth and complaining about the wars, but these people being pulled out of their lives, white lives being ruined in this manner, being enslaved. You know, the big thing that, for example, the US really can be proud of, and Europe as well. I was like, the white man put a stop to that shit, and it's back and. The supposed, the right wing who's supposed to be the ones who care about us, they're just as they're as silent as the left wing on it, and that's probably why they probably because they're partaking in it, either in taking advantage of these women by going into those brothels because we know those upper echelons as they call that are nothing but sewers when you really have the true glance of what it is. Um, or directly or indirectly they were getting money for it, and I think Grace has spoken to that as well. That money always is a big factor in just letting whites being preyed on. The money is too good, the drugs are too good, the hookers are too good, so let whitey die. That is the attitude, and it's disgusting. And people like that, they have an enormous issue with a morality, with that morality that we advocate for coming back. But yeah, I am droning all now. So, and I see that Janitor wants to say something.
Janitor of White Noir.
I'm gonna build off of what Blue Fame said. Uh, with he was Blue Fame was just saying he made paragraphs and letters on YouTube comments like a long time ago. And that's very similar to how my story with the with how I thought I could my friends like were going to adopt, like the outcome I thought was that my friends were going to adopt my conclusions. But really, um when I was doing so I shared with them the Carolyn Baroshenko video that I saw, and I was like, hey, look at this. And then they were like, they and I thought, okay, so the outcome will be that they're gonna, have this stance that I had, which I don't even know what it was, or is it, I mean, it didn't really matter. Um, and then again, I do that a few months later with something else that was, um, I was like, oh, okay, I'm gonna, you know, present my conclusion, and immediately they'll come to this stance again. Didn't matter. Um, and then so again with my friends, I uh I um I think, oh, they'll probably, say something, and I'll just educate them with some go free um uh to wake them up to go free. And instead, the conclusions they're drawing when I was telling them um about mine were stripping them of their moral posture, because they were just using them to justify the victimization of white people. Specifically, it was like I don't know specifically, but But again, it was these stances that I had, and I was like, oh, okay, they're gonna come over, and then like maybe we'll have a conversation of how they came, have why they're not gonna, why they will adopt this stance, and they didn't, and then they didn't, and then I finally got to the white positive, recruiting them to a white positive morality, and instead I just stripped them of their moral posture because they didn't. I mean, they did just use the conclusions because it was like it's not like they're ignoring what I'm saying, but they're just using the same conclusions to justify the victimization of white people.
Mr. Biosphere of the West, are you with us again?
I do believe I have my time back. Thank you for giving me the mic back.
I was working on it. I promise. All right. Welcome, Stumbling. Good to see you. We'll just read your comment in here real quick, and then we'll get back to Mr. Biospirit. Stumbling writes, the difference I see with Go Free and every other strategy is that it isn't just a strategy. It is a set of principles we can apply in our daily lives as normal white people. Strategies that require us to adopt strange beliefs and behaviors are doomed to fail. Very well said. And Janice writes, I get what Janitor is saying. Biosphere of the West.
Well, now that I have my mic back, I don't really know what to say. Yeah, I'm gonna have to have a topic or something thrown at me. Sorry.
Can I jump back in? You got it.
Well, we do have one more topic up in the board. We can throw that out in the pool and see what floats, such as it were. Uh, so this is a photograph taken in the 50s, kind of my era. Yes, I'm that old. Little boy, probably 8, 9, 10 years old, in class with a gun, and nobody's running scared. And I'll read the attached caption on the photo here. It says, gun safety being taught in an Indiana school in 1956. In 1956, firearms were an integral part of daily life in many American communities, particularly in rural areas where hunting was both a cultural tradition and a practical means of providing food. I have done both. Schools often reflected this reality, incorporating gun safety into their curricula to teach children responsibility and respect for weapons from a young age. These lessons emphasize careful handling, understanding how firearms functioned, and following strict safety rules under the watchful eye of instructors. Yes, we actually did that in my elementary school. This classroom scene in Indiana, captured by Gray Villett for Time magazine, shows a young student holding a rifle as part of such a lesson. The image illustrates the educational approach of the era. Children were introduced to firearms in a controlled environment rather than kept away from them entirely. The goal was to foster caution and discipline, encouraging familiarity as a way to prevent accidents rather than promote recklessness. And I would submit, we don't necessarily want children to have sex, but we teach them the dangers of sex, do we not? Looking back, the photograph provides a striking window into mid 20th century attitudes towards guns and youth education. Cultural perceptions have shifted significantly since then. Uh, I would disagree, with firearms in schools now widely viewed as inappropriate or unsafe. The image stands as a historical reminder of how much Americans' perspectives on gun safety, childhood education, and responsibility have evolved over the decades. Now, I would submit that the only thing that's really happened, of course, is the white erasure of our Western civilizational norms and standards, as I point out very often. Back in 1956 in Indiana, I'm guessing the state was high 90+% white. There was no gang crime probably in this little boy's neighborhood. Certainly the teacher probably was white. His parents, he probably had both parents in the home, come from a nuclear family. And I have one of my positions that I've held for many years is that we need, rather than have children be afraid of guns or mystified by them, we absolutely should bring this back and to bring guns back into school as part of curriculum. And that should be something that even if you're somebody that doesn't like guns, you should be able to agree on. For the same reason as we educate our children about drugs and sex. We don't want them doing drugs and having sex, but if they're at least familiar with them and have some understanding, uh, the understanding takes some of the fear out, and a little bit of education goes a long way. And these, of course, is an opinion that I'm not going to change. I see New Hampshire Patriot has joined. Good to see you. I reckon you and I will probably have the same position on that point. You know, a lot of children. There's a story I didn't put up in a jumbotron of a child who uh, had an accidental discharge, well, as they worded it, with a firearm, because of course he had no idea how to handle it, didn't know anything about it. So, got into the parent's gun and was something that was totally since he was so mystified and ignorant about it. Kids are very curious and they want to get into things. I would much rather this child have had some familiarity with it from school and known what it was and at least how to handle it. If he was going to handle it, how to have at least handled it safely. He would have known that it was a real gun, not a toy, not to point it at anyone. You know, always keep the muzzle pointed in safe direction. All those safe firearm handling tips that, of course, we used to teach every child, whether they would ever own a gun or not. Another preventable accident. But again, thanks to the wide erasure of our Western norms and standards, we can't have Western kind expressed in this manner anymore. So whether or not anybody wants to comment on this topic, I'll leave it out there. But I did want to throw it in there. Mr. Janitor of White Noir.
Something New Hampshire has seen, and I'm just guessing because I see it in my class with the anti-white lens interpreting that any resistance to the anti-white regime with a gun is all bad. Because the self-defense part of it, but also it can be a show of farce.
Biospirit.
Yeah, I can remember going to high school, and many of the guys who came and drove had the gun rack in the back window with rifles there, and just no one thought anything weird about it, because if you were driving and you happened to see a deer, or you happen to see a moose, or you happen to see something, and it was the opportunity, you took it. So it was quite normal back in my childhood also. And while I agree with you that gun safety being taught to kids, I would agree with that in that it's appropriate for our children to be taught these things. I don't necessarily know that I agree that the biospiritual nature of non-whites is compatible with that expectation. So I see it as something that is compatible with our people, but not necessarily compatible with other peoples. And when the article is talking about the evolution of things, I call it the devolution, the de-evolution of things, because we're getting rid of what is our norm and what is our standard for how we act and how we behave. And why are we doing that? Well, it's because of um, other people's norms and standards that they want, and also because of anti-whiteism, which wants us defenseless and um, can't stand the idea of anyone having the right to self-defense. So, yeah, those are my thoughts on that.
I don't disagree. And of course, I would point out that the Second Amendment was written at a time when it was written for white people, at a time when we created the United States of America. White men did. Uh, so I absolutely agree. I don't. This also, I think, speaks to what was touched on yesterday about sharing our technology. Firearms are part of our technology. They're a creation of our biospirit that we should have kept to ourselves. Janitor of White Noir.
Hello. This reminds me of a talking point from Hans. I was listening in the replay. Uh, how you cannot measure the hardware of Western civilization. So it doesn't make sense to say we gotta westernize, but also white erase at the same time, because 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 you can't measure the things that make Western kind able to um have guns and like uh I mean, you know, and change that one way or the other.
Not really sure what you mean. Eindelen?
Well, I was just going to say, along with the topic, so I mean, I definitely agree with you guys as far as and Biospirit came up. He had a good point as far as teaching our children uh, gun safety, and the fact that the right to bear arms is really the right to defend yourself with a firearm, because the only way you can do that, the only way you can defend yourself against a firearm is with a firearm. So that was definitely a great point. But just besides the topic itself, I just we were talking about the go free method, and really for me it was kind of like a puzzle piece that was missing, because when I look at pictures like this now, also, I mean, being I mentioned before about being in photography and stuff like that in school and everything, but you see pictures like this where it just really captures the moment. And at a time like that, uh, I mean, the conversations that we have now would have never happened back then. This idea of we just have too many guns, I feel like it would have been very similar to having a conversation about having too many hammers around, because it's just the way things were understood at that time. It was really these things are a tool, and of course they had a deep understanding of what it meant to draw down on somebody and pull a trigger. So it's not quite the same thing, but it's very, I mean, firearms were very, they had a very practical idea of what firearms were and what it meant to have one. That's why they would teach their children. But just the picture itself, I just really like, and that's the thing too about Western civilization is that we've had so many different eras and capturable moments like this that when I really think about it, you got some people that like they're they have moments and stuff, but nothing on the same level as all the special moments and eras in time that we've had, these capturable moments where you look at one picture, the idea of a one picture says 1,000 words. uh that just really came to mind when I was looking at this, but it's very true for us.
I know one of the things about growing up on a farm, I was introduced to death at a very early age. Uh, and very often it came at the hands of a gun. We used guns to put down the hogs before we butchered them out and yeah, turned four-legged animals that were living and breathing into meat that went on our dinner plate. The permanence of death due to a gun was something imprinted very early on. So I had a very deep understanding of what it meant to actually pull a trigger for something to die. Something pretty well removed from most people today. Um, they go to the store, they buy their meat. Unless you've ever hunted something like a deer and shot it, particularly as a youngster, you know, death is something that happens, but you don't really, I don't know if you can fully appreciate the permanence of it. It's not a video game where you just hit X, Y, and reset, and the animal pops back up again, and you get to do whatever again. Just my thoughts. Janitor, I know you wanted to respond. Go ahead.
Yeah, but I definitely needed to hear Eindelen, you know, take up this topic because, I was saying how I was referencing Hans, but I was just adding on to what Biospirit was saying that uh the biospiritual compatible norm of, I don't know if you want to call it gun safety or responsible defense and uh class, but yeah, changing you can't I mean, entire biosphere doesn't have that compatible with them, then cannot uh especially even if you didn't have the go free method, um then how you see this before and after that, being armed with it, then it's all like, so how Eindelen brought up, like if I saw this before, I totally would have been thinking like, I don't know, I just imagine just a total white cuck thinking some multiracial harmony back in the past, dial back time. But um like with this, then I can see, okay, it's just not biospiritually compatible with some biospirits. And that's, not healthy for Western kind to try to change that out of other people's hardware.
Okay, yeah. So I agree. I understand what you're saying now. Thank you. Um, yeah, and that's something that we talk about on all other topics here. You cannot have, it's there's the things that are moral to us aren't a universally held morality to other peoples. Things like proper gun handling and the permanence of it, how it's a tool to be used. We tend to use guns for as tools meant for good uh, moral purposes, or moral by our morality anyway, versus for bad by our morality that other people might not consider bad necessarily. Mr. Eindelen.
So I apologize in advance for I'm going to try to explain this. Like I said before, I'm a simple guy, so I hear things a little bit different, but when we talk about biospiritual norms and stuff too, there's something like guns and stuff. That's a characteristic that really stands out for the United States, and it goes along with a conversation of morals and all of these types of things. And I'm not saying that our brothers in Europe and stuff can't. They don't really. It may not be as relatable to them to hear that as far as like a bio spiritual conversation, but it definitely is. But one example I heard the other day, like I said, I'm going to try to do this justice. So uh, a norm for us is the concept of time, where there's places in like third world countries and stuff where they literally don't have a concept of time. And the example the guy was giving was he was somewhere in Africa, and he got on a bus. And when he got on the bus, he was just waiting, and the bus didn't go anywhere. He was wondering, like, because in the United States and Europe and everything, these bus routes, they come every 20 minutes. There's the whole idea of public transportation is reaching your destination at a certain time. But this place in Africa, they just wait till the bus fills up. There's no concept of time. There's no specific time that the bus just picks up and leaves. They wait until the bus is full of people, and then they go on the route or whatever. It's this, like I said, I can't do it anywhere near the justice of what this guy was saying, but just this is like another bio spiritual norm of Western civilization. And of course, uh Eastern Europe, Asia, they all have I mean, of course they keep track of time and stuff too, but it's just that really stood out to me, like the conversation of what a biospiritual norm is. That really kind of that's the first thing I thought of when I heard of that, because I really had never even heard of that before. Is like, you mean these people, they just basically sit on the bus, they wait for it to fill up, and then they go about their day. But if the bus doesn't fill up, then it's like, who cares? I mean, we don't have anywhere to be at any particular time. I don't know. I just kind of wanted to throw that in there.
No problem, brother. No, I get it completely. Um, you know, excellent analogy, Mr. Janitor.
Indolence, biospiritual norm, of respect for time, and the guns, also the other one. And I was thinking how exactly the lens he was saying in you know deep Europe, maybe they don't think of this as biospiritual, but rather as um probably just some not healthy way to think about it. Whereas in the US, it's an alloy. Americans come and then have sharp difference, and it becomes super vivid to how non-whites respect time or um take up guns. And that even in deep Europe, I mean, at first I didn't know what Angela was saying, and I was like, well, just yesterday, CKO brought up some like gun manufacturer. I think it was yesterday, maybe another space from like
I would think, and I'm open to correction here, but I think the split between American gun culture and European culture, gun culture, is really quite modern. I would point out that Europe was just as much into guns and improving gun design as any of the American gunsmiths were, right up into the early 1900s. It's really only recently, since the gun bans and uh, the disarmament of white people in Europe preceded us so much, that you see that divide in gun culture between uh, part of Western kind in Europe versus the Western kind in America. Just my 2 cents, Mr. Blue Flame.
What seems sensible to me as well is that the influence of firearms in compared to the US and Europe. Um, I guess in the US's case, it makes a little bit more sense that let's say the American mindset to have your tool of self defense at hand is it has a lot to do with the history also, right? Europe was largely settled. The worst, like the wilderness, was largely driven off the last 200 years, or way before that, honestly. And going to the US, our people had to face an entirely new situation where the jungle was still a very real thing, right? So I think that the culture more so has developed through to the threats that we faced, and that actually does include like these endless family feuds, um, that could come from yeah, fighting over plots of land, the typical stuff, or even it's, for example, back in the day when wars were fought and officially they were over for a lot of the for a lot of the families involved on either side. That war was for life. Like that did not stop simply because the guys in no, not because the yeah, it didn't stop because the armies stopped being funded. It's just simply returned back to feuding, and of course then we have all of these tribes full of scalpers and cannibals all over the place, roaming as they see, at whim as they see fit, unless properly driven away, I guess. Uh, yeah, the situation wherein there's actually a little funny aspect to French history as with that as well, in comparison to most other nations. Um, but I'll get into that in a second. I think it's for a large part simply has to do of the memory of needing a tool to defend yourself is far more fresh in the American mind, culturally speaking, and think that is I think that is also why you see that in the rural parts where such vulnerabilities are, technically still are a thing today, or through anti-whiteism are back, right? Uh, the tendency to have those tools of self-defense at hand is far larger compared to, let's say, New York or whatever. Although I guess that might have changed a bit by now as well. Although the attitude politically definitely still isn't. Uh, but yeah, I think that's also very important to realize that if you go to the huge cities of the US, that is where you'll find most who abscond, having such means, to defend yourself. Because why would you, right? Um, and maybe let's say 20 years ago, well, we know it's not 100% the case, but it was largely more justified because more people could get through their entire lives without ever needing anything like that, so to speak, right? Um, so I think a lot of it has to do with that. It's not necessarily that Europeans or South Africans or what have you, or New Zealanders suddenly had something along the lines of, oh well, whatever. It's not really that important. Uh, because yeah, I have like the removal of weaponry also depends from nation to nation, and that is maybe something that at least not everyone, of course, but I know some American folks, friends of mine, who really struggle with that. When you say that, yeah, the Netherlands don't have firearms anymore, but if you go to Russia, yeah, well, or maybe Russia is the best example. If you go to Hungary, they still have that. In France, you can still get firearms through hunting licenses and all of that stuff. It's like but it's Europe. It's like it really is. It's country by country, and even within each country, there are different means by which you still legally can get firearms, right? Um, But of course, yeah, there are also European nations where, for example, forming militias is illegal. Belgium is a good example of that. Oh yeah, and I was also about to say with France. Um, yeah, in France, in the rural parts of France, it is actually very common that most houses, yeah, just regular houses, doesn't even matter how humble they are, the door frames and the window frames are usually made out of stuff like reinforced oak or like something crazy that you need like like a battering ram to even make a dent, and even then, uh, it's always going to be a big if or a maybe or what have you. Now, why is that still, very typical, for example, in French houses? Again, particularly in the countryside. Cities, no, same as anywhere else. Countryside, different story. As because they have still the living memory of all of these, for example, Islamic tribes invading. These caliphates, I should perhaps say, like ruining the entirety of southern France. Like most people, they're like, oh, the Martel dynasty, the Carolingians, oh, they stopped them. No, no. These caliphates definitely managed to encroach into France until driven out. It's but again, there are these markers, and what is one of the surest ways when some roving gang comes by? Well, at the very least, have your house strong enough so it's kind of like a tiny fortress in and of itself, right? You make the windows particularly narrow. I'm not. I guess that is kind of fading away, although you still see that in like, yeah. I guess I can go on and on about it, but yeah, and that is one of these other little things, and you'll find that everywhere. Uh, there is also something to be said in Europe, though, for the, let's say, unofficious keeping of firearms. People who simply they did not trust the state, and any tool, whatever that they had that they were supposed to bring in, they simply didn't, because they don't trust. That is something that I think also can get a little bit underestimated, maybe. The younger generations certainly are a lot more passive when it comes to all of that, I think. But yeah, the older generations, I believe there are still plenty of them who have all sorts of stuff stocked away somewhere, all over the place. For when the time comes, or whatever reason they think is the right time to come out with it. So yeah, that might also be worth bearing in mind. But that's just something. Um, like I personally, I barely know anything about any of that. Firearms or whatever. I barely know which hand to hold. it's uh, it's not been part of my upbringing, but I do understand from people I've talked to, or just general sentiments towards towards the anti-whiteism, although they'll give it a million names, except of course anti-whiteism. Um, yeah, I think there would be many Europeans all over the place that if they would have the opportunity to have something like, I guess that's the Second Amendment in the U.S., that for their specific nations they would want the same. Yeah, the means to self-defend. I think in Germany, even recently, there was a year or two ago, there was a big upheaval about that. That there was an element of society that really clamored of we want to be able to arm ourselves because we were being hunted in the streets and that sort of thing. Of course, nothing came of it. Big surprise, but yeah, there you are. Um, I suppose, yeah. I think that explains more or less from my perspective the why. The why of why in the US it's more of a thing than the rest of the West. It's not for lack of want, it's not for lack of interest or anything. it has a lot to do with necessity, I suppose, and ease. I'm not saying it's all positive. I'm just saying that that's simply what it is. Well, I'm gonna hang it up on my mantle because why would you need it anyways? Streets are safe. Women can walk by themselves at night alone if they wanna and be totally fine. We won. Jungle is driven away. But yeah. Anyways, there's that on what I think about that.
I'd say it's a pretty fair and accurate assessment. There's nothing there I would disagree with. As we get ready to close things out, just want to point out the last post in the Jumbotron. King's Staircase in Hampton Court. What an absolutely beautiful expression of Western kind in the art. The absolute beauty of this. I encourage you to check that out. Mr. Eindelen.
Well, one thing I was going to say too, and I know you and New Hampshire Patriot have kind of touched on this before, is the actual self defense laws. I've noticed though that the presence of guns is kind of it kind of shapes the conversation of self defense because it's necessary. The fact that we have so many firearms and firearm related situations, it really kind of makes the conversation of self defense always necessary, even in the eyes of the law, which is very important because I've noticed in other countries that are disarmed, that don't have firearms, they also don't seem to have very good laws on self-defense and self-protection. So I just kind of noticed that's hand in hand. Like one thing really kind of shapes the other, almost like the example of time that I was talking about. If you don't have if you don't have a concept of time, you also don't have a concept of preparing for the future either, which is something that really goes hand in hand. If, like I said, these things really kind of shape each other. That's just the observation that I made. But I like that staircase as well. It kind of goes along with what I was saying. All these capturable moments that we have in Western civilization, things like just beauty and craftsmanship, is really it's everywhere in the West. Maybe not so much anymore, but at one point in time, it definitely was.
It will be again when we recapture our destiny. And it's coming. You can believe that. With that, let's send it around for final thoughts, and we can all pop smoke and go grab something to eat, go relax, and do whatever. I'll start with my friend, Mr. Biospirit of the West.
Yeah, I love the little video of the Hampton Court. That's absolutely beautiful. Just a little final thought about what Eindelen was talking about, how things are different when you go to non-white countries. And I was remembering when I went to Belize, and for some reason, I'd always wanted to go to Belize because I knew that they spoke English there because it was an English colony. And so I thought for some reason that it was going to be far more civilized than other places. And we got there, and we were supposed to have a connecting flight that was going to take us to where we were going to be staying, which was farther into the country. And so the people at this little airport said, "Oh, the flight's not going." And we're like, "What do you mean the flight's not going?" And they said, "Well, it's going to be nighttime, and we don't fly here at night." And I was like, "What?" I was like, "Oh, okay. So it's all right." So then we had to find a place to stay, and we got a taxi, and we go into Belize City, and it looked like what you were seeing in the news during those times of how Beirut looked. There was, barbed wire everywhere, and potholes, and things were falling apart, and it just looked like a war zone. And the taxi pulled up in front of this hotel, and we said, "Is this the best hotel in the city?" And he said, "Absolutely. This is if you're from the West, this is where you want to stay." And we were like, "Okay." And so we go in, you know, through the barbed wire, and go into this hotel, and it was very nice. It was a Western built to our standards hotel, very very ornate inside. And we asked at the desk if there was some place nearby that we could get dinner because we were quite hungry. And she said, "Oh, no, 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 no! You don't go outside after dark." I was like, "What is this place that we've gone to?" And so at least they had a restaurant there, so we had some dinner. We went to bed. We get up. We we catch our flight the next day in this little itsy bitsy plane that flies us to this place in the jungle. And I know I'm kind of going on here, but anyway, this was just reminded to me about what Eindlin was talking about and how it's different in other countries. And so then we signed up for going on trips and stuff. And there was this one trip where we got on the boat, and we're going on this boat to this place that was called Bamba. And so we come in on the little boat. There's maybe, I don't know, 15 of us tourists on this boat, and we pull into this little harbor in the jungle, and it absolutely stunk. It was because all of their sewage was going into the water raw, and so it smelled absolutely awful. And we get off the boat, and we're just in the jungle, and someone has built these kind of like barns for the locals to sell what is supposed to be their wares, but it looked like all of the stuff was made in, I don't know, Vietnam or Cambodia or something. And every single little barn had the exact same things that you were supposed to buy from them. And I was just like, what is this place? It, it looked like a bomb had gone off in Bamba. And so when you do get out and about in the rest of the world, you realize that everywhere is not the West. We are very, very unique. And so many of our people think that we are all the same. We are not all the same. People are not the same around the world. They want to come here and live here in the West because we offer them so much. There is so much here for them, that all the goodies, but they cannot create it. They cannot maintain it. It's just us. So those are my final thoughts. Thank you for letting me ramble on a bit. And thank you for the shade tree today. It's been mighty good.
Brother, I can relate so much. I have been to almost 30 countries, and I can tell you I have had so many similar experiences. It truly is not our similarities that make us the same. It is absolutely the differences that make us different. Great words from my friend Jason that ring true every single day. Mr. Janitor of White Noir, your final thoughts.
Well, Biospirit, he just said, had come to mind two meme characters, and I only remember one of them, and it was they will recreate the civilization they fled from. And that was it. And then the other thing is that when Biospirit was just telling that, it was like my dad telling me his stories from when he was younger. Great. And really moving. Good shade tree also.
Thank you for coming, Mr. Blue Flame.
Interesting topic such as always, and I really enjoy talking about these cultural differences between our nations. It does, yeah, it only helps paint an image about who we are, and why are there some differences. And I guess as in this case, what we just talked about, are they truly differences in the sense of spirit, or is it more so a sort of pragmatism that creates like the variation, if you will. And again, yeah, also local history. What does a branch of our race have to contend with that other branches not necessarily need to, and how does that affect us? So yeah, very interesting to get into. Having to talk about what we were on about earlier with these what do we call them, self-serving types, I suppose, who are willing to sacrifice regular good people who simply want to live their own lives. It needs to stop. It needs more calling out, and it needs to end. It really does. It keeps being like one of the main barriers for our people to get ahead is always types like that. What do these types always themselves like to say? Every single time? Yeah, it's always every single time them. It really seems that way. Um, so yeah, I'm really glad that we broached that topic as well. Needs to happen more often, and my heart goes out to that Ukrainian lady and any other victim of anti-whites as it stands, and the anti-white decisions made in courts that were built by our people and have been totally twisted and warped. And we're going to do our utmost to turn it all back around for the better. And with that said, you all enjoy the rest of your day and don't sweat the nerds. We're going to get there in the end.
Very well and beautifully put, brother. 100%. Good afternoon, Timo and Cardia Nebula. Good to see you both. Last but not least, my friend Mr. Eindelen, your final thoughts.
Yeah, brother, it's been another great one. Once again, I really appreciate this, and I mean, I really appreciate the healthy aspects of the Go Free method, and I just I mean, yeah, like Biospirit was saying, when you go to these other places, you just there's such a lack in just the we think about safety, like in this case with the unfortunately the girl that was killed, and these really stand out to us. But when it just comes down to the small things too, like I said with the time thing, and Biospirit talking about just the place being filled with potholes and completely run down, like just these little foundational principles that make the West what it is. The Go Free method really helped me to see that. And yeah, when you don't have a concept of time, you don't have a concept of maintenance, you don't have a concept of preparing for the future, and it's just one thing plays on the other, and it's just before you know it, you don't even have a civilization. But this really helps us to see what we have and appreciate it in a different way. So I'm really thankful of the healthy place it puts me at mentally, and thankful for you guys too. So I love you guys, and we'll see you tomorrow, hopefully.
Well, amen to that. And, we love you too, man, for sure. With that, this has been the Saturday edition of the Shade Tree White Wellbeing and WG Space. We meet here daily at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time here on X. We practice the Go Free lexicon and concepts as developed by Jason Kuna, Mr. No White Guilt. You can find him here on X as at No White Guilt NWG. Elsewhere is simply No White Guilt, and on the web at nowhiteguilt.org. I want to thank each and every one of the speakers, and to all of you who showed up to listen. You all make this space possible by bringing your diverse skill sets, experience, and intelligence here for all of us to share. Without all of your participation, whether as speakers or listeners, it would just be me, an old man rambling into space, and I'm often not interesting or handsome. Thanks again. I truly appreciate y'all. Enjoy the rest of your day or evening. I do love y'all and hope to see y'all tomorrow under the shade tree where we continue to go free. Bye bye.